Good mythical morning, everyone. Welcome to another Project Feline dev stream, or Project Feline show and tell. I guess I should stop calling them dev streams, because I find that it's too difficult to work and chat at the same time. So this week, what's today? The 10th of January. On this fine 10th of January, I'm going to be showing you some stuff I've been cooking in the feline studio. What do they call it? What cats have all those things that they climb on. I don't know what those are called, but in a big version of those, that's actually where I'm developing the game, guys. I've got a big cat structure, and I'm climbing up in there, fixing bugs, coding stuff. That's what I'm doing every day. I'm just trying to get open. I'm just trying to find a document. Cat tree. Yeah, that's one of those. Welcome to the Project Feline cat tree. The Project Feline cat tree hangout. Yeah. If that's what is that actually what they're called? Cat tree? No way. Oh, it is. Oh, it actually is. That would, dude, making a level like design like that would be pretty sick though, now that I'm looking at it. I could probably do that in Trench Room, wouldn't I? Make some cool cat tree stuff. Hey, we got that's a cute little cat gif in chat there. Epic. I'm just trying to get, because I got a few things. We got the stuff in the game and stuff out of the game. I'm just trying to find two files just real quick. I just made myself a cup of coffee. I just got to get everything open. How have you guys been? Enough about me for a second. How is everyone? How is the first week of 2025 going for everyone? Oh, of course. I try to open Adobe Audition to show you this audio file, and it crashes instantly. Oh, that's lovely. Yeah, I still gotta find replacement software. I'm switching things out. We're doing DaVinci instead of Premiere now, but I gotta find a replacement for Audition still. Is it gonna open without crashing? Okay, I got it without crashing. That's fantastic. I just gotta open one file. Audio. Luckily, because I organize all my footage so well, I know exactly where to find it. Okay, sick. All right, let's get me desktop up. Let's get it open. There we go. 20 out of 25. That's a pretty good rating. I like that rating because when you look at the numbers and you take out the slash, it spells 2025. That's really cool. That was totally not on purpose too. That's a great coincidence. Hold on, can I? Oh, thanks Scuts1001 for subscribing. Thanks so much, man. How do I? Can I get? Yep. There we go. Okay. Now here we go. We're getting into it. We're getting into it, guys. So as per last week, I was telling you guys that I was going to get into doing particles. And I was going to, I think it was particles and blob shadows. That's kind of where my focus was going to be. And I've done some work on that. I've done a bit of figuring out on that. I just got to find where I've put my effects. So first of all, for particles, right? Because that's kind of the last stage of getting Gabi's model to look amazing. That's the final stage of getting it to look great as particles. And I've been doing some more studying of Guilty Gear, because I don't know if anyone's actually paid attention to the particles in Guilty Gear's games, but they're pretty insane. They're pretty crazy. They're pretty wacky. So I cut up this reel of footage from Guilty Gear. So for the haters out there, I have played Guilty Gear. Okay, shut up. I have played it. By playing it, I mean I've just messed around with the practice map for 10 minutes. Look, this is the thing. Guilty Gear I've used as reference a lot for my art style. This is where the anime techniques, I get them all from this game. I don't actually like the game though. I'm not into fighting games. This particular game, I tried to actually play it normally and it's so hard. I don't get it. So If all my movement sucks, shut up. Okay, I'm not meant to be playing fighting games anyway. I'm just doing it for research. I know every game dev always like winks and goes, "Oh yeah, I play games for research," but that's actually real. That's actually what I'm doing here. I have no idea how to play this game, but I cut up some clips and I use DaVinci Resolve for this and not Premiere. So I've been trying to get familiar with DaVinci as well. I use the cutting timeline editor, which is really cool, to cut up some footage and export it. And I've been doing a lot of research into video codecs as well, because I'm trying to figure out if I can use different codecs to save space on my hard drive. But that's a whole other... We won't get into that. But what I've been doing with these reels, it looks very abrupt and weird to just watch on a loop. The point of it, though, is that I'm just getting bits where I can then pause and then scrub frame by frame. And I'm just looking at all the particle effects. And I've rendered it at really low resolution because it takes up less space and it's faster to scrub through without, my CPU overloading. So I've just been studying, and what you'll notice about some of these particles that's really interesting, this is in UE3, by the way. This game was made in UE3, and they're using the Cascade Particle Editor. And I didn't know that, because I coincidentally am also using the Cascade Particle Editor, because it's just old, and in my experience, anything that's old is more reliable. But it turns out the particle editor I've been trying to learn is the same one used in this game, so that's pretty cool. The thing is, though, is that these guys know how to use it really well, and they know a lot of tricks. So I've been studying things like these footsteps particles, for instance, or these like shockwave, like you see on this guy, they've got like these big shockwaves around the guy, and it looks as if, bits of the particles are animating as well. So because look, I'm not a VFX guy, I'm not a particle expert, so I'm just trying to figure this all out as I'm just watching this. And I'm looking at things like the footsteps here on this character. And you'll notice that, they've got what looks like, I guess Unreal calls them flip books, I believe. And it animates it so that each particle that spawns with each footstep, and I don't know if is it going to let me zoom? Can I zoom in without it breaking? If you sort of look at just sort of the shape of these particles, they animate, they get bigger, and then they change into these smoke bits. Now, I know what you're probably thinking. You're looking at this, and you're thinking, does that mean, hold on, I'm trying to close my magnifier. There we go. You're probably thinking, that's a lot of work, and it is. Because then if you go even more into this and start looking at other... Also, you'll notice as well, because the flipbook particles are kind of... They switch out to different bits of smoke. But you'll notice there's other particles, like these little popcorn-looking ones. Like here, where I don't know why it's playing it here, but you can see that these popcorn-type particles, they have animations too, but they are also moving. Like the actual particles themselves have some movement on them. So that creates a bit of... Like, the movement itself is smooth, but the particles themselves are traditionally animated. But then it gets even crazier, because then you look at this jump particle, and if we go frame by frame, that big spike, this thing, is not a particle. No, it is not a particle. Do you guys want to guess what that is? Do you guys want to try and guess this big cloud of smoke? Do you want to guess what that is? I'll see if anyone can figure it out. Seamskull says it looks like a 3D model. You are correct. It is a 3D model. And I don't know if anyone, because some people might know this talk. The Junior Matsumoto's 2016, 2015 GDC anime style tricks talk. That's like the talk that I'm like basing all my art style on. And I don't know if anyone remembers the Q&A at the end of that video, but at the Q&A at the end, someone asks him about the particles, and he says, in the studio, they like jokingly said, oh, wouldn't it be funny if we like hand modeled each frame of smoke? That'd be pretty funny, right, guys? Except that's actually what they did. So, and so I heard that, right? I heard that that's what they did, and I thought to myself, God, no, please, no, I don't want to do it that way. I've already spent so much time on this model. I don't want to put myself through hell and have to hand model each frame of particle. Except you'll notice as well that it isn't all 3D. Like here, it looks to me like it goes 3D and then it switches to a flipbook. But still, doing all that is a lot. Okay, it's pretty full on, and I'm thinking, as cool as it would be to get this, I wanted like, is there a cheaper? Because I don't like. I know I'm very perfectionist, and I don't like compromising, but I think my approach to things is finding. There are ways that compromising is good. There are things to compromise, but there are things to not compromise. And the attitude I took making Gabi the first time, or this time, was that I didn't want to compromise on the model quality and animations, but I had the expectation that I would be okay with compromising on particles, because it's not something I really pay attention to in games a lot. I don't know if it's just me, but for me, I'm always just more impressed by animations of the character than the particles. And my game is not a combat heavy game. Like Guilty Gear is very combat heavy. They have a lot of crazy anime special effects. Like I got some moves here of the combat in this reel. Like I think she hits this guy like this. I hate VLC, by the way. There's a button that lets me scrub forward a frame, but not one that lets me scrub backwards. Anyway, so when she hits, I don't know if it's going to show. Well, they have all these lightning effects first off, which I don't need. And then, like, for things like this, where she has, like, a whale spawn and all of these things, like, this is all combat game stuff. And I'm thinking, okay, I don't need to go this hard, because it needs to be hard in this game, because it's a combat game, and the feedback of you hitting things is important. But in my game, that isn't as much the case. For me, the priority is more the character impacting with the ground type stuff. It's not very combat heavy. So I'm thinking, all right, is there a way I can do this cheaper that looks close enough? And this is not the attitude I have taken with the rest of the character, but you can't do everything perfect. I can do most things in the character perfect, but not everything. So there's some more footage, because I did try some attempts. So I was trying to use the Cascade particle editor, and I had bought some particles from the asset store like a year ago, thinking it would come in handy someday, and it came in handy this week. So what I started doing to try and recreate this is just looking at existing particles and seeing if there was a way to just use some marketplace stuff to remix together my own particles. And these were some of my results here. So I first started with just trying to get a shockwave type effect for when Gabi jumps and lands. And I mean, it looks okay. Like, it's not amazing yet, but it's something. And as someone that doesn't know anything about particles, it's a start. I then tried to go a bit more. I thought, can we add a bit of like smoke? Because in the Guilty Gear reels, also a cool thing to note is that a lot of the particle effects are reused between characters. So you'll notice that the footsteps on this character and this character are the same particles, and the jump particles are all the same. So that's pretty neat. But you see how, like, when the characters jump here, they have this massive, like, sort of smoke explosion, and then when they land, it has this sort of popcorn kernels. I wanted to have more like a wave, because I just thought it would look cooler. But I could try popcorn as well. I call it popcorn, but you know what I mean. It does look like popcorn, right? Anyway, so I thought, could I get some of that going? And then I might have had some issues. Gabi's model might have gone a few places. I did get some smoke particles in there though, but there's way too big. So that was a bit of a Seamus Finnegan moment there. And then I kept messing around a bit more. So here are some of here's what I was able to get it to at some point. So this is the actual preview in this little window here. And this is the particle editor itself. So a lot of this week has just been banging my head against the wall trying to figure out how this editor works. And I know that, like, when you look at this, you might be instantly thinking, oh, this isn't the new cutting edge Unreal 5 particle editor, Ray, what are you doing? And it's like, calm down, okay? I think I said I'm not really too interested in using cutting edge stuff. I know that there's probably a more advanced particle editor with UE5, or even in UE4. I know they have the fancy Niagara particle, whatever. I don't care, because for me, I deliberately chose Cascade because it's older. And what that means is there are years more of stable tutorials written for this that have been battle tested with time. with more cutting edge things like whatever UE5's using, all the tutorials getting made for it are newer and have been as such subject to less scrutiny over time because they're newer. So my logic is there are probably lots of high quality tutorials that stood the test of time, because this is like, what, how old is this particle editor now? Well, for instance, I think it's probably older than I think, but the tutorial I was watching for this is from like 10 years ago. So I figured, all right, well, if the tutorial is good enough, if after 10 years people are still following it, it's probably good. But what you don't want, I find, because I've looked at lots of tutorials, and I usually find that new stuff is always bad because they haven't actually had time to battle test what they're teaching. Because a lot of the people that are making tutorials are not professionals. It's just Indian people that are just, you know, they're just like, they looked up the documentation and they went, oh, I could make a video on this. I could teach it, except they haven't actually put it into practice themselves. And especially with programming tutorials, some of you maybe you know what I'm talking about, but a lot of the time you end up with just bad implementations that haven't been battle tested. So that's why for me, I find that you're more likely to find higher quality learning materials with older stuff because it's just been around longer. Anyway, so that's why I'm using Cascade, and I'm starting to get familiar with it now. I'm starting to figure out how it works. It looks to me like each particle system you can make is rigged up with multiple emitters. So if I solo these out, I've got two components. I've got this flipbook smoke effect, which is just a repurposed asset store thing I found from some other explosion. And this is sort of the strategy I'm taking at the moment, because animating my own smoke trails from scratch is just going to take a long time, and I don't really know how to do it. So I'll see if I can find the original, because I've done a lot of remixing to it. Let's see, 2D anime footstep. I think it was the 2D anime effects. So I've used some of these particles for different parts of the game before, but a lot of these are the way these are. I think these are just they're meant to look stylized. I don't think they look anime in particular. To me, it looks like something more out of League of Legends, but it's close enough that I could start using as like a base. So that smoke effect that you're seeing on my jump is actually the same one from this explosion. It's just this, but I've changed the color, and I've changed the material slightly. So that's the same flipbook. I've just reused it here. And then I've got this shockwave, which is I think also from one of these, but I've done a lot of modifying to that as well to make it look cooler. Yeah, I think this has the shockwave in it too. And I've just been trying to learn how to modify parameters and what all of the, because there's a lot of stuff you can do with these. And the tricky thing is, as I watch these reels, I'm watching all the reels of like Guilty Gear. I'm looking at it frame by frame. And when I look at it, I can kind of imagine if I was in Blender, how I would make meshes and hand animate it. But that's very labor intensive. The thing with this method though, with particles, is that it's all parameter driven. And there's no, like, it has a little graph here, right? But very little of this is hand keyed animation. It's all maths. And I don't like maths. I'm not a maths guy. So it's a bit tricky to look at a piece of footage and then, like, in my head, think, what numbers do I plug in to recreate that effect? Because my brain just does not really work that way. But I've been trying my best. What I have been able to I did figure out some cool tricks, though. I'll show you this in action before I keep breaking it down. So this was what I was able to get with these particles so far. So this is how it looks in-game. I might have to tone them down a little bit because they are pretty big. Like that shockwave, I think I need to maybe shrink a little bit. It's a bit large. But we got something. We got something going. It's better than last week. And now that I've sort of gotten the basics of the Cascade editor, I kind of get I can kind of understand the work needed to do the rest. So that's it clears up a lot of ambiguity, because last week I had no idea how any of this worked. What you'll notice though as well is that I also have a blob shadow now, because some of you guys last week were requesting that. However, it's got some issues with it still, but I tried. Okay, we tried getting the blob shadow in. It looks better when I'm not in like this white debug scene though. I'll show you in a different scene. The blob shadow looks better. Goro says, "Dude, your movement is eye candy," in all capitals. Thank you very much. I appreciate that compliment, because in all capitals. So that's how I know that you're not being sarcastic. Because, you know, sometimes people will say it looks cool and I can't tell if they're joking. But the all capitals, I think, yeah, okay, that means I think I've done a good job. Thank you so much, though. Where did I learn how to make those particles? Well, like I said, I just kind of, I took some I bought these, I don't know, when did I buy these marketplace assets? Must have been like a year ago, because I knew it at some point, I'm like, I'm going to need these, so I'm going to buy them on sale. And what I've just been doing is, because these are the ones that aren't mine, just these sort of anime styles explosions, and I've just been like looking at them, and then just like looking at all of these, and like fiddling with the numbers, and getting a feel for what happens when I try to break it. And it gives me an idea on, and like, you know, turning things on and off, seeing what all of these do. So here, for instance, I can break down the layers, and I can say, okay, well, this is this bit, because you can solo these, which is pretty cool. And then if you turn off all of these, and you just turn them on one at a time, I think some of them you have to have turned on, though, for it to work. Like here, it's like, okay, well, what is this thing? See, I've never seen this one before, so what does this do? Start radius, distribution. So it's got a radius of 1, and then it has a velocity applied. So I think this is the thing that's making it go outwards in a sphere shape. That has to be what that's doing. Because if I turn this off, the particles all just spawn in the middle and go nowhere. But if I turn it on... Okay, so that must be what this does. And then this... I think this just adds like randomized rotation to it, because when you turn it on, the rotation randomized gets bigger, whereas if I turn it off, it's more spherical. And it's just a matter of like just turning things on and off and like intuiting what they do. I'm going, all right, I reckon this does this, and then you test it, mess around with the numbers, and go, oh, okay, it does do that. I've also onto the tutorial side, because again, I don't like relying too much on tutorials, because there's just so much junk out there now. But I have been watching this old Unreal Engine Cascade tutorial. I'll see if I can find it. That's the thing too, is that I've noticed, I don't know if it's just me, but like it feels, oh, this is NVIDIA. Hold on, I'm trying to find the official. It's an official Unreal tutorial, but it's from like 10 years ago. And as I was saying, like, I don't know if it's just me. I think it's this one, Introduction to Cascade. I've been watching some of that as well. Now, the thing is, this is Unreal 4.2, and it's from 10 years ago, right? But I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's just me, but it feels like tutorials 10 years ago were at higher quality than the stuff I try to look at now. I don't know if it's just me. Maybe, I don't know. Maybe it is. You guys let me know if you've noticed this or not. But this is really good, because the guy explaining it obviously knows what he's talking about. This is probably one of the guys that helped build the system even, because this is the official Unreal channel. And it's very comprehensive, and the pacing's good, and it's casual. It isn't like over-scripted and overproduced. It's casual, but the guy... It's the kind of thing where you can tell the guy already knows what he's going to take you through before he's even shown you. Because there's so many tutorials I see now where during the filming of it, they'll screw up something and it doesn't go to plan. And then you have to wait like 10 minutes for them to fix whatever they're doing. And it's just like annoying. And the implementation, it's usually someone that's read the doc and then have made their own tutorial without actually applying it. So this guy, though, obviously he's like intimately involved with the system, and he's like showing you what all these mean. And it's timeless. Like, it's so good that even now, 10 years later, I'm watching it. And I don't know, like, I don't know if it's just me, but I feel like there's a vibe to like early 2010s, mid 2010s tutorials that I feel like tutorials now don't feel like this anymore. I don't know if it's just me. Could be. But I found this is really good. And it's given, it doesn't show you like, I haven't been following it step by step and like copying it, but it's just, it explains what everything does in a very like nice way that makes sense. You mean passion? Yeah, I guess maybe that's what it is. I don't know. I guess because back then tutorials weren't like popular. It was like a niche thing, so only people that actually cared about tutorials made them. But now it's like there's a financial incentive for everyone to overdo tutorials on a topic. I don't know, maybe that's part of it. But I don't know, back then the materials were of higher quality, I feel like. But yeah, I don't know if it's just me though. Lie on Lion says, I feel like most things have less quality now. Yeah. Well, and then that's the tricky thing, is that then you might have people that say, no, are you kidding me? We have stuff at 8K, 100 FPS now. And it's like, yeah, that's fidelity. I think we're in a weird age right now where fidelity is higher than ever, but quality is at an all-time low. Because those are not the same. Quality and fidelity are not the same. So, you know, that tutorial, right? Because you might go, like, the production values is not, like, it isn't, you don't have, like, the guy with, like, the over-edited, like, YouTube, like, banner in the bottom reminding you to click and subscribe. And, you know, he doesn't have the red and blue lighting. He doesn't even have a face cam on him. But he doesn't have any of the weird lighting and like a DSLR camera out. And the audio isn't mixed terribly where the bass is too loud. Like, this is the stuff I tend to notice about tutorials now. Like, because I was trying to look at tutorials for DaVinci Resolve earlier this week as well. And I think it's a lot more prevalent there because the tutorials are a lot newer. If we search like DaVinci Resolve tutorial, you'll see what I mean. Because a lot of them, it's just over... And I guess because these are editing tutorials, so the guys will just always want to overdo the editing. I don't know if this one in particular, like... But, like, this kind of stuff where it's like they have the title screen transitions that are just unnecessary. And, like you don't need to do this much editing. Like this, where they've got, like, the text at the bottom, and it's, like, scrolling, and it's like, you don't need to, like, do this. And, like, having I don't know if it's just me, but it feels a bit like it's distracting me from the knowledge. It's like, I don't need to be impressed by your fancy editing and your cool lighting. I just want to know how to do it. Like this stuff as well, where it's shot on, like, a high... I mean, I guess because these are editing tutorials, so maybe maybe it's different for game dev tutorials, but I've noticed in game dev tutorials as well, I'm starting to see this, and it's just a bit... It's a bit much, and it's like, I don't need to... I'm just here to learn how to do this thing. I don't need to be impressed and dazzled by how highly produced your tutorial is. I don't care. So I don't know. I don't know if that's, like, common or not. That's just something I'm noticing. Lemon Drop says, videos back then used to be people making something because they're passionate and knowledgeable. Now people make videos optimized for the algorithm. Oh, good point, actually. I totally forgot that was a variable at play, but that's probably the case. Because I think a lot of, you know, they watch Mr. Beast and think, oh, well, they have like 10 sound effects in the first 2 seconds. I got to do the same. And then they go and add, like, they Mr. Beastify their tutorials. Which, like, oh my goodness. I just forget I said those words. Okay, a bit of my soul just died hearing myself say that. Anyway, back to particles. Okay, I could rant about tutorials forever. So yeah, through learning, I've just been getting the old tutorials, looking at how they used to do it. The thing is as well, because there's just more documentation on this old stuff as well. And there's more time for arguments to settle. Because with newer stuff, I've noticed, if you try and research anything new, you'll find some, like, Reddit thread or something. And there's no populist consensus yet, because it's so new that people haven't had time to actually come to a consensus, because there's not enough time to get experience with the new technology. Whereas with Cascade, like I said, this is what they used for Guilty Gear in Unreal 3. This is the same particle editor. So that's like 15 years people have had to figure out what to do and what not to do with this editor. And even though it might be less advanced and it has less, like, I don't know, like, to me, this is more than enough. I don't need, like, the kind of particles people make with this, where you can just add emitters, add meshes, add materials, and add some scaling. I don't really need more than that. I don't know what Niagara does. Supposedly you can do more advanced whatever with it, but I don't know, to me this looks fine. I don't need anything more advanced than this. There's probably, I'd imagine as well, this is probably cheaper performance-wise as well, because this was from UE3. So I'd imagine at least. But for instance, if we look at this pre-made one, they had the popcorn layer. I'm trying to find where the popcorn layer was. I just saw it. They had the popcorn layer. They have, like, these cracks layers as well, which is pretty cool. I think, is this it? Yeah, so this particle system has a popcorn layer on it as well. So I might even be able to use that, because basically my strategy is look at tutorials just to understand what I'm doing, and then see if I can use things from these assets I've already bought and remix them into my own thing. So that's what I've been doing. Like, yeah, the shockwave and the smoke effect are all from that asset pack, but I've adjusted them. The cool thing, the one I'm most proud of is the shockwave, because I did a lot of touching up to this to make it fit the style. And if we look at the size by lifetime, I've figured out as well that you can do limited animation with particles. Because that's probably the concern some of you might have, right, with this, is if you're using the particle system and it's simulating everything, won't the particles move at a higher frame rate than the character? And yes, they would. And that's actually not too bad, because the even Guilty Gear's particles do that. So if it's okay for them to do that, it's probably fine. Not all of them, mind you, like these flipbook particles here, like the smoke, which is, it's like flipping, it's just a sprite that's flipping between different pre-rendered, like pre-drawn on a sprite sheet smoke frames that they've made. Not that stuff, but if you look at the little popcorn particles, those, the video itself is recorded at 24 frames a second, so it's not 60 FPS gameplay we're looking at. But if I did record it at 60 FPS, the popcorn particles would be moving at 60 FPS. And they have it looks as well that they have a flipbook on them as well, but there is movement on them that's at a higher frame rate. So I'm not too worried if the frame rate doesn't match up, because I mean, hell, these guys did it, so it must be okay. But what I have tried doing, though, I've put in a little bit of effort at least to make it look, at least for some of the stuff. So for the shockwave, I've used the curve editor, and I don't actually know how to get it to show up on the curve graph here. I'm sure there's a way to do it, I just haven't figured it out. But I've got all these numbers at the bottom, where it's got constant, because you can change the distribution. This is the size by life modifier. So if I click on this, what this does, it basically scales. You can tell it to scale the particle over the lifetime of the particle. And my thing was, because by default it had 2 points. It had 0 and 1. And at 0, the scale was 1, and then at 1, the scale was like 2. So that means over time, it scales up by double. And it just automatically interpolates it. And I thought to myself, if these are just plotted on a graph, because this is what is amazing, is that it has an interp mode. And I thought, oh, it has a constant interp mode. That means I could plot my own keyframes in this thing and make it like a stepped frame rate. So I tried that, and that's what I did here. So if we look at like the actual numbers, I've got 0, and again, there's probably a way to show this on the graph. I just don't know how to do it. But I can look at the numbers, and I can imagine the graph in my head of what it looks like. So at 0, I've got the scale at 1, and then at 0.25, that's like, think of that as a keyframe on the graph. I then scale it to 1.7, and because it's constant, it's going to snap to 1.7 when it reaches that. Then at 0.5, which is a bit further, then scale it up just a little bit, not a lot. So that way it gets that kind of easing, where it comes out really quick at first and then eases. So that's why if I change this to like 1 instead of 1.7, the scaling is a lot more linear. But if I do it to 1.7, it's more like an easing. It's more aggressive. Like the shockwave is more aggressive, and then it eases. But if you have it linear, it just goes like very robotically like that. So it's not really easy to see when I've cut out the in-betweens like this, but that's sort of how it goes. And then I've just got one extra little keyframe at 0.75 where I scale it up just a little bit more. And you know what, I can probably adjust these, because I did say that the shockwave is a bit too big. So I might adjust these here while I'm here, just to see. So I might change this to maybe 1.7, and then this one I'll change to 1.2. And we'll see how that looks. So now the shockwave is a bit... Oh, I didn't do it on the land, but on the ascend, when she jumps, the shockwave is a bit smaller now, which is kind of better, I think. But yeah, the shockwave does get pretty big on the land. I might actually have it start off a bit smaller too, because it starts off very big. So let me close these other ones. So this is sort of just what I've been trying to like do with the particles. It's just sort of fine-tuning it. So let's see. So we'll start it at like 0.5 instead as the starting scale. So now the shockwave, its starting size will be smaller. And then I'll change this to 1. And then this will be 1. Maybe make this 1.5. I'll make the other 1.25. And again, I've got the graph in my imagination of how the numbers would look distributed. I just haven't figured it's probably easy. I just haven't figured it out how to actually show it in the graph view. See, that's a little better. It does look a lot smaller. The scale does look a bit weird though. It does look a little too uniform. So maybe we'll change that to 1. And then this will be 1.25. And then we'll make this 2. Because there we go. That's a bit better. So if I jump, because I want it to disperse at the end. So that's why it gets a bit bigger at the end. And it flattens a little as well. So, because I've got the Z scale as well. So if you watch when she jumps, it like starts flat. Maybe it shouldn't actually. Maybe it should start a bit bigger. Because it starts flat. Maybe I'll start it at 1. So that it has some height to it. So when I jump, okay, so because now the particles start tall and then they kind of flatten like that. I don't want to make it too much like water though. That's the only thing. Where she's like splashing in water, but it's on solid ground. So that's just the thing I've been just trying to keep an eye on. But yeah, I do. It's a bit more subtle, which I like. So I might. And here's the other thing, because then you gotta like. There's like a whole way to copy these to different particles. So what I've been doing for that, let me go find my folder again of particles. What I've basically been doing is I've been going, once I figure it out somewhere, I can copy it to another. So on the dash, so here's the jump particle, and then I click on, oh sorry, not the dash, the land. You have to have that selected, and then you have to go like export, which is a bit misleading of a name. I think it is this one, right? So you can click on this just emitter and go export emitter, and then it basically just copies it to the one you've got selected. So I'll delete the original, and now I've got that same one for the land. So now the land particle should be a bit smaller. There we go. So it's a bit less dominating than it was. Now I think where it's going to shine even better is when I can get sound effects. I think when you got that in, it'll be awesome. But that's just what I've got for the moment, just with particles, just trying to figure all that out. Because it's unfamiliar. When I'm unfamiliar, it takes me a bit longer, because it's like a whole new world. But you know, I'm getting there. I'm figuring it out. You can hear the SFX already. Oh, that's sick. That's awesome. For something as often as jumping, screen shake. Yeah, I think I did have screen shake would be too much. I agree. I did have screen shake. I think actually, hold on. In the previously last available public build, which is ancient now, there is screen shake on jumping and landing, and I hate it. It's pretty bad. I think it actually still might be there, because I have a setting that reduce camera shake, and I just leave it turned on. But if I turn it off, it might even play it. I don't know. Oh, thanks so much, Real FD, the real one. Thanks so much for resubscribing for 16 months, dude. Thank you so much. You're a real one. I know I say that every time, but it's true. It's true. I'm gonna type. That's so true. I'm gonna type real in chat. That is epically real. Thanks so much, Real FD. I appreciate it. By the way, because we had a bunch of new gifted subs last stream. I don't know if any of them are here this week. If that is you, you got to make sure that your Twitch and Discord account are linked, because you'll get access to my supporters only chat where I've been sharing all this stuff already. So guys that have been in that Discord already know everything I'm about to say this stream. And you get the funny screenshots and work in progress gifs and all that stuff, and it's pretty cool. So you should check that out. You should make sure it's linked if you want that. I gotta think, what else is on my... Because that's basically it for particles. But there's been other stuff I've been working on, which I'll get to next. I'm just going to answer some questions real quick. RiseCac asks, hey Ray, wanted to ask, do you mainly code in Blueprints or do you have C++ code? I mainly code in Blueprints, and I know it's not the right way, okay? I know everyone says that Blueprints is not coding and it's bad and you should avoid it. The thing is, though, is that with Unreal, you can't avoid using Blueprints because it's built into the workflow. But there is a correct way of using them, where you've got your core classes written in C++, and then you expose them in blueprints for the designers to use. The thing is that C++ is... like, some people have said it's really hard to learn. Some people say it's actually easy to learn. It's been my experience that when someone tells you it's hard and someone tells you it's easy, the person that tells you it's hard is correct all the time. Because there's probably... the person that thinks it's easy probably is the Dunning-Kruger in the middle, where they think they know everything but know nothing. That's probably what that person is. So anyone that tells me that it's actually easy... because I've had people do that, where it's like, oh, we'll just learn it, it's easy. But it's like, you probably think it's easy because you don't actually know it. Because the people that do know it, that sound like they know it, you know, like, I don't know if anyone's seen Better Call Saul, amazing show, by the way. They have the scene where Gus is trying to make the underground lab, and he's flying engineers over from overseas to assess the site. And they bring in the first American guy or something, and he's got all this high tech. He's got his laser pointer out and his iPhone. And he's like, "Oh yeah, man, this will be easy. My team can handle this. We do stuff like this all the time." And then they just send him home immediately. And then they bring in the German guy. They bring in Werner Ziegler, and he's like got his old school pencil and paper, and he's all stressed out and motion sick, and he's there looking at the site. And he's going like, oh, many things can go wrong. And he's all stressed out and worried. And they hire Werner because Werner obviously knows what's up. He actually knows like how hard it is. And he's looking around at the site, and he's thinking to himself, oh, you know, if you want to do all this digging, you're gonna have to blast rock, and that can cause heaps of problems. And then if you want no visible activity from the outside, that's gonna be very, very difficult and very expensive. And he's right. All of that is going to be hard. That's why they chose him, because he actually knows what's going on. But the American engineer guy, he's like overconfident and thinking, oh, yeah. He doesn't even mention all those contingencies. He just like brags about how, oh, well, I've done jobs like this all the time. It'll work. And that's why they don't hire him, because he obviously doesn't know what he's talking about. And it's the same. I know this is a fictional show, but that principle is real. That's why the show's so great, because there's so many nuggets of truth in it. But that little story, the how Werner Ziegler was chosen for the site, that's kind of how I think about taking advice from anybody. If there's someone coming at me that's like, this is easy, they're probably not correct. You want to listen to the guy that will actually tell you all the contingencies. So with C++, to bring it back on topic, I know that there is a level you need to understand about computers to actually effectively use C++. And I think one of the big ones is things like memory management. And the thing is, maybe that is an easy thing to learn. Maybe it isn't. All I know is that I don't know anything about memory management. I don't get it. And I'm not a programmer primarily. So my deliberate choice is to use blueprints, knowing that there is a performance impact, but making up for it with like familiarity with it and it working better with my natural style. Because if I tried to do the alternative, sure, I could probably become a better C++ programmer, but I would be suffering and in hell because it's not my natural thing. And it would just take forever. Like, because I feel like to actually learn it, I know that it's one of the hardest languages, and to actually do it properly takes more than like 6 months. So that's kind of why for me, I deliberately know, I know that blueprints aren't like the most optimal thing, but I think as well, that's a bit of a half truth. I think a lot of the time people think blueprints are bad is because most people that use them are beginners and would use anything badly in general, not just blueprints, but everything. And that's why I was saying with tutorials earlier, when you look at like most blueprint, like even the tutorials I first watched when learning this, I can look back in retrospect now and see just how bad they are in terms of best practices. Because it's just hobbyists that like pick up blueprints and then just because of the YouTube algorithm are incentivized to make monetized tutorials on blueprints despite not actually knowing it. The thing though is that I feel like I'm in the middle between complete nonce and someone that knows what they're doing, where I know that you can't abuse blueprints. I know that they aren't optimal, but I have faith that there is a way to use them carefully where you won't have a lot of the issues that give blueprints the bad reputation they have. And most of that stuff, It's like the stuff the contractor did where they had the NPCs and they run at 20 frames a second. Because that's very common of a story. And I think most of the time, people look at that and go, oh, well, if they had just done that in C++, and it's like, well, no, it's the actual problem there could have been solved with blueprints too. It's just the kinds of people you get that are using blueprints. There's like a Venn diagram of like people that don't know anything and then people that use blueprints, and there's a lot of overlap. But I think you can get to a point where you're careful and using blueprints and just understanding like the limitations of it. And that's sort of like where I try to sit. Anyway, I know that's a very long answer to that question, but I get it a lot. I should probably make a video on it at some point. But yeah, it's just because it's like I have the gamut of what I have to do is so big that I can't afford to like do everything the exact perfect industry standard way because it's just too demanding. But I can still be careful and like take calculated risks, which is sort of what I've done with blueprints. So in my case, because there isn't many actors on screen at once, it's usually going to be like maybe 5 enemies on screen and Gabi, because I know actors on screen with tick, that's like a consideration with blueprints where C++ handles that more efficiently. And that might be a concern if you're making an open world game. But in my case, because there's only going to be like no more than 7 characters on screen at any given time, and most of them are very primitive, and most of the models aren't that high poly, and the materials are very basic. With all of those in consideration, it's like I could probably get away with not needing the super optimized C++ thing. Oh, I just realized as well that because I had screen shake turned on, that I was mentioning. Now that I've got it on, you can see that there is a bit of camera wobble on the grind. And I at some point, I want to take all of that off because I think it doesn't quite match my game style that much anymore. So I'm going to turn this option back on for the moment, but at some point I'm going to have to go and remove all that so that you don't need to change the default settings. Anyway, I wonder if some yeah, so that's going to be because at the moment, my first priority with particles has just been the jumping and landing, just to get those. And I think I'm mostly happy with them. The only thing I'm a little concerned about is the smoke explosion particles, because again, these are just from an asset pack that I've just repurposed. Because if you look at it from the top view, the particle, because it's on a billboard, the particles will stretch. So if you look at it from the top, you can't, like, the smoke is flat like this. So the thing I'm considering is whether or not for smoke dust clouds like that, to instead of using flipbooks, to using 3D instead. And to get an idea of what I'm going after, there might be some in one of these other assets. Because I do have a second particles pack in here somewhere that has, I guess it's a style, it's probably a style thing. But I've got something like this, where the smoke, this is a huge like nuclear explosion, but you see how the smoke effects are like 3D modeled in. So that's something I'm also considering of like, would it be better to do these with models or to use flipbooks? Because the advantage with flipbooks is that you get the limited FPS easier. The disadvantage is in a 3D game, the view angles are terrible. But the advantage with 3D is that you can look at it from all angles and you can still see that actual particle. But the disadvantage is that it's less intentional. So that's something I still have to consider if that's what I want to do. Because the thing I want to get to at some point next throughout the week is getting like little footstep clouds, like little popcorn kernels for her footsteps. I don't want to do it as extreme because the Guilty Gear particles are like these footsteps are extreme as hell, and they're cool. And I thought, oh, that'd be sick because this is done with flipbook particles, obviously. But the thing is that this works because it's a side scroller fixed camera perspective game. That's why that works. This wouldn't work in my game in the 3D view because these particles are flat. And if you're looking at it from the back, you're just going to see like these sheets of smoke completely flat like this, and it won't work. But if I tried, also just the sheer amount of particles, because it's very exaggerated here, which looks cool from this angle. But if we're doing it in game with the 3D camera, because what I don't want Gabi kicking smoke into the camera where you can't see anything. So that's something I gotta keep an eye on as well. But I think I do want to have just a little tiny little kernels, just subtle, just so that there's something. But I don't want to go as over the top as Guilty Gear, just for practical reasons. the next, of course, after that is going to be grind rail sparks of some kind, which now that I know how to use the particle editor, I think I can figure that out. I also tried doing, it's still like very bad, maybe you guys have seen it. I tried doing like a dash particle as well with these like swirls, and this is just, I haven't done much modification to these yet, and I'm not too happy with them. Okay, I'm not too happy with them, but I do want to get some kind of like shockwave, because you know, when she lands she has the shockwave, but I want to get like an aerial version of that rotated when she does like dashes in the air or something, so that little shockwave like that. The Guilty Gear actually has a version of this too. I've got it at the end of my reel, when the character jumps in the air. You see like this thing here, it doesn't last very long, but my existing shockwave is actually kind of similar, but when he starts dashing it has this effect. That'd be cool. The only thing is that as you've probably seen, Gabi moves so fast that the particle gets like left behind instantly when she dashes. So I'm not sure if I should try to work out some kind of way where the particle follows her so that you can actually see the shockwave, because I think that'll definitely add a lot of appeal. And the other thing as well, I tried doing this, it didn't quite work, but I tried to also add the shockwave when you start wall running, but I've added like rotations in the socket, but it doesn't actually apply the rotation to the particle. So that's something I also need to figure out, is having it so that the particle can actually be rotated, which you'd think you just rotate it and it would just work, but it turns out it's not that simple. So I'm gonna have to figure out something with that. And yeah, it's the same with, I tried to do it as well with the ledge jump too, and it half works. I'll move to a point where the camera is not gonna clip. I've got it here, where if she jumps, the actual smoke, the jumps, I'm just using the same jump particle, but I've rotated it. The smoke rotates, but the shockwave doesn't rotate. So that's like I don't know why that's happening, but there's probably some setting that I haven't figured out yet, so that when she jumps off something, she has like a launch off particle, like a blast. I guess you could call it a blast off particle, which sounds pretty cool actually. The blast off. That's what we got. But yeah, I might maybe something for the double jump as well. I'm not sure, but it's mainly just getting impacts when she hits something. That's kind of the main thing. So yeah, grinding, I think that'll just literally, I've got it so that when she lands on the rail, it also plays, it should play it at least. Yeah, it plays the effect when she lands too on the rail. But yeah, sparks would be a great addition, I agree. But yeah, as someone who spends his time deep in mostly C++ code, Blueprints is programming. Oh, well, thanks, Billy, for validating my life choices. I appreciate it. Well, yeah, because, like, on the one hand, I kind of agree it isn't, but there's a word that I like to use. I think Blueprints, to me, I would call that scripting. And I think C++ engineering stuff, that's programming. That's sort of the way I see it. And I don't really see them as one being inferior to the other. I see it more like they have a purpose. And like, I think the attitude I have is you should be able to do most things with scripting. And programming is when, like, if you should only really need to whip that out in, like, sparingly, unless it's absolutely necessary for some, like, core architecture or something. But yeah, because I might, when I use those words, I know people might say like, oh, well, I use Blueprints, I'm a programmer. And I think, no, I think it's more appropriate to say you're a scripter, but that's also fine. Like, there's nothing wrong with that. I just, because I don't know, I know scripting and how to like script stuff, like when after delay play sound or whatever, like I can do that sort of stuff, but I know enough about scripting to know that it's not the same as like deep level programming. I don't know any of that stuff, of like the deep level, but I know enough to know that there's a lot I don't know about it. So yeah. I wonder if you could cut the frames on the smoke, you mean? I don't know, maybe, because the thing is, it's running on a special material that iterates through the which I have to clean up, by the way, because I'm currently just using a material instance of what was in the what was in the asset pack. But what I've been trying to do lately is take the asset pack material and strip it to its essentials and make it my material. So I do have a it's in here somewhere. I've made a master material called feline particles, and again, this is just a slightly cleaned up version of what was in the pack. But I do want to change, because I don't know what any of these do, because that's just how it was named. So I want to re-comment this and maybe see if there's a way to simplify this down, because I don't know, there's something about this that seems a little bit superfluous. I know that each of these parameters controls a different part of the smoke, but again, because this isn't mine, I'm just intuiting what I think it does. But I want to make it mine so that I know what's going on. And I'm basically, my idea is to just, the cool part is that it has this functionality where you can have these two numbers and a texture, and it animates through the texture. That's kind of the important part. The rest of the stuff can probably go in the bin. I don't think I need it, but this is the important bit. So what I want to do is simplify this material down so that it's just got the bit I actually need. And then it'll be simpler to work with, easier to iterate, and that'll be like the master material for all the particles that I end up using. And those particles will have like the transparency and everything, but then have the ability to be animated as well. So because of the way that works, because if you look at the actual textures for these, and again, I didn't make these are the asset store textures. If you split it into quads, in half and then in half, you can see the different frames of the shockwave laid out like a sprite sheet. So that's how these work. So cutting out frames, I'm not sure if it'll be as easy. I don't even know how you would do that, unless you like change the texture itself, which I would like to avoid doing if possible. But we'll see. I think for the moment though, the shockwave itself is like I'm happy enough with. It's just getting it to work in all the instances I need it to work. That's the only trick. Grab an inventory asset from the store and behold, blueprints. Thanks, Platinum. Have you studied Warframe movement animations? Not really. Not really, no. I think I've kind of past the point where I would be studying the animations now, though. Because for these, for instance, I'm not studying the animations, I'm studying the particles. And Warframe's like realistic, isn't it? It's like a very realistic game. So I'm not sure if there's much juice I could squeeze out from Warframe. But yeah, I was kind of mostly aiming. I did all my animation stuff a few months ago, though. So that most of that's sort of wrapped up to a point I'm happy with. Texture packing is good for optimization. That's what the weird stuff is for. I see, yeah. Channel packing, okay. Because yeah, I kind of vaguely get what it does. Because again, this isn't my material, this isn't a marketplace one, but just from looking at it, I can tell that it's using the red color channel to iterate through a flip book at certain intervals. So maybe these numbers, it determines like the grid size of the flip book, and then it just iterates through based on the red. Because I think what's going on is in the actual wherever my actual particle was, which, like here, when you've got color over lifetime, that's what's controlling that red parameter to animate through and flip book the particle. So I can understand why it's done that way. I just obviously would like to go and comment it better so that future me will know. And I don't really get what this is doing, and I want to figure out what this is doing to see if I can get rid of it or not. Because just from experience, when working with other people's code, it's like people will leave in a lot of stuff, and I'm just thinking like, what's the simplest thing possible? Like, I just need one. I know exactly what I need this to do. I just want one thing. And if this, I think I know that this does something about controlling. Actually, now that I'm looking at it longer, I think I'm starting to understand what this does. It looks like the actual texture is mapped. These gradients are mapping. They're using these as special like material IDs almost, if that's the right word. It's mapping it to this, and then it's using the RGB channels to then apply colors to them, which is how you're able to recolor different parts of the smoke. I think that's what it's doing. But because it isn't commented, I'm just guessing. But I'd like to go and figure that out at some point. Yeah, it's because it's like a layered texture. That's actually kind of neat. I haven't seen that done before, but it's actually pretty cool. Because that's not how I would have thought to do it. Or what I would have thought to do is just hand paint the colors and just have one color for everything. But the fact that it's got different colors is actually kind of cool. So now that I'm looking at it more, I kind of respect that. It's pretty neat. Instead of having 4 separate texts. Yeah, it's pretty good. It's pretty awesome. Yeah. So again, because I'm just sort of learning as I go with this. So I'm making lots of cool discoveries. So it's gonna take me a bit of time to get familiar with it all, but it's starting to make sense now of like the world I'm going into with these particles. So it should be easier for me to plan out the next one. So yeah, back to the topic, the ones I want to do next is like grinding, figuring out how to rotate the particles properly, and like maybe cleaning up the materials a bit. And what else do I actually need particles wise? We'll play around a bit, because I know that there's definitely there's the dash, which I need to definitely do, because it sucks right now. What else? Because I could have sworn there was more work I had to do on this as well, besides just the grind and then the dash. Oh yeah, getting the rotation right on impacts, and like the footsteps in general, and the footsteps, because they need to be there for these, and also for the wall running too. So that might be a little tricky, because I don't know if that's just going to break or not. And then there's the combat particles themselves, and I'm just trying to think, because I know for certain objects, because here's the thing with the combat. If we go and actually get some enemies, because I don't want to overdo it. That's the thing. I don't want to overdo the particles, because it's just going to look amateur if I do that. Oh, I just remembered. I got to have some kind of skidding particle for when she slides. There isn't any particles yet, so that's gonna be a tricky one, because you need like 3D smoke clouds or something like that going on, because you got to be able to look at it from different angles. So that's going to be a bit of a challenge, because I don't really know how to do those yet. And then also like for the skidding, when she like skids and turns around, having like a tuff of dust, getting that to sync up and look nice. That'll be a little tricky, because I can roughly picture how it'll look. I just don't know the numbers that will like make it, like I don't know the exact numbers to plug in that would make it look like that. But that's what figuring it out. You just get in there, mess around with numbers, and you kind of can figure it out. But the thing with the combat is that these enemies have particles on them when they get hit and when they explode. So I don't know if I'm going to need particles on Gabi herself for these combat moves or not, because she has the smear frames. And I think maybe I should just leave the actual impact particles to the object she's hitting rather than her. That's sort of what I'm thinking. And because it happens so fast, maybe it's fine. Maybe that's all I need to do. But that's my logic. Thanks so much, how do I pronounce that? Sorry, I keep mispronouncing your name. Putakani for 100 bits. Thanks so much, man. Champion. Epic. But yeah, so it's that stuff. I'm trying to think, what else did I say? Footsteps, grinding, sliding, and skidding. When she like does the slide, because the thing is as well, when she starts the slide, because she does this tuck roll, and I don't know if I need like an extra like boost particle or something like that for when she does the roll. I don't know, we'll see. And then there's also clambering as well. I've been doing a bit of touching up on the clamber animation lately. I don't know if I think I might have forgotten to mention, but I've been trying to touch up the clamber animation to look better. And that's probably going to need like particles as well for when she touches the wall. So yeah. So that's like on my list of stuff I'm going to try to figure out over the next week. Is like syncing and rigging all the... I like to think of it as rigging charges. Kind of like a special effects person on a movie. Or something like that. Because I think that's what they do. When they have like bullet effects on a wall, they have to like rig an explosive and do it. That's kind of the way I'm thinking about it. Is like I got to rig all these charges on her model so that when she does certain moves, it sends a bit of smoke here and does a bit of this there. And everything like that. So it's just gonna be a matter of like syncing all that up. Scorpy says, I recommend not using complex channels logic in a simple material. Yeah, I don't quite know what that means. Does that mean, you mean like this stuff? Is that complex channels? If that's what you mean, then I'll try and see if I can work out a way to remove this and make it even more simple. But I'm not actually, yeah, because I'm looking at the texture. I'm not sure if that'll actually be possible, because it looks like the textures themselves are built to rely on that functionality. But if I keep it in, I'm probably not gonna make it. I mean, because I'm looking at this and I can kind of get what it's doing. So I think it's, I don't know, it shouldn't be, like, I think that it's probably as complex as I'll need it to be. Because I can see the utility with this, of like changing different parts of the texture to be different colors. And yeah, I can't imagine needing anything more, I don't think. Colors control. Yeah. Kicking objects onto enemies. Oh, well, that's gonna... Oh, that would be cool. I do, at some point, want to change the way that impacts work. I'll see if I can get... There's a bit of this level with enemies in it. There is something I've been wanting to do with that, but there's a few issues. Which... I'm trying to... we'll see. So for the enemies, right, it would be sick if when I hit them, because at the moment I think they just stay still and they react and then they go and then they explode. I agree, it'd be really cool if when you hit the enemy they go flying and could like smack into other enemies or something. That'd be sick. There's a problem though, and this is something I have not figured out. And I've tried to go on the rabbit hole on this a few times. It might have been a year ago, I think I tried investigating this. And it's a whole other world. And what I'm talking about is physics. As I've learned doing Gabi's movement, physics and frame rates and frame times are really complicated. And to show you what I mean... Oh, oops, hold on. Let's go to those crates. I have those crates over there, right? Those have physics on them, and I can go and kick them and stuff, and those will react to Gabi's combat, and they'll go flying. I've got them so that they'll respawn as well, just in my test scene here, so that when I smack them, they respawn. Here's the thing, though, about these crates. Because it looks fine. You look at it and go, oh, that's sick. Why don't you just add that to the drones? Let me show you a cool magic trick. We're going to do a cool magic trick. We're going to reduce the game's frame rate. We'll go 30 frames a second, which is like, I'm sure some people will play it at 30 FPS if they have like an older machine. When you change the frame rate, all of a sudden the physics forces completely change. It might not look that way just looking at the footage, but when the frame rate is higher, you can see that the cubes travel much further distances. Because it's hard to show off, because you gotta like play around with it a bit, but it's not consistent. That's the main thing. If you're running the game, maybe we'll go 20 frames a second. If you run the game at 20 frames a second, yeah, the physics is a lot more extreme the lower the frame rate, and I don't know how to fix it. It's just how by default, that's just how the engine does things. This isn't me like getting some setting wrong. That's the stock settings. By default, the physics will be more extreme when the frame rate is lower. And that is a big problem in a movement-based game like mine. See how, yeah, now when I hit the cube, the force isn't, when she just runs into it, it's not as extreme. Like, she just sort of taps it like that. But at 20 frames a second, it goes further. And when you're doing things like enemies, where you want it so that... Because here's what you guys probably want. This is my game theory, okay? Here's what you guys probably... Because this is what I want. What I would want, if I did add that kind of kickback to the combat, what I would want to happen is that it acts predictably. And you can probably start to see where this is going. Because if I get back to those enemies, what I want to be able to do is I would want it so that when I have that kickback, I would want the system that figures out how to push the enemies and add velocity to them. I want it to be consistent insofar as that no matter what frame rate I'm running the game at, when I smack into this enemy and that enemy is there and that enemy's there, it'll always smack in and then hit the other enemy with like roughly the same behavior at the same velocity every time. Because that's sensible. Like, why wouldn't it do that, right? What I don't want happening is if you have someone that's got a potato computer running the game at 20 frames a second, when they have their combat is like OP and everything has like 10 times the velocity on it. Whereas if you have a nice computer, the physics is like neutered and toned down, because that's now unfair. And that sucks, because it's like, why am I being punished for having better hardware and the physics is weaker? And the thing is, when you research this stuff, because there's a reason why in the sciences, you've got like what, chemistry or geology at the bottom, and you've got physics at the top as like the most advanced. There's a reason why physics is at the top, because I tried to research this and figure out how the hell do I make the physics not broken? Because this is like Skyrim stuff. Like you'd expect this from Skyrim, not from like a normal game. And like modders were able to fix this, because Skyrim actually has this problem where that's why VSync is locked on. When you buy Skyrim Vanilla on PC, you can't disable VSync, because if you did, the entire game, because this is an entire engine-wide issue for Bethesda, where their entire engine is tied to the frame rate. And if you go over 60 frames a second, the entire game speeds up. And luckily, modders were able to fix it so that the Havoc physics time step was like in sync with the frame. I don't know how it works, but they were able to fix it. The thing is, I'm not at the skill level of a Skyrim modder that knows how to fix AAA games. I'm just a guy. So I tried going down the rabbit hole, and I tried looking up like physics time step, and it's just it's so complicated. There's like a whole wiki of stuff, and it's like I'm out of my depth. I have no idea what the terminology means. I don't like, it's just stuff I don't know. If I sat down for like a month and studied it crazy, I could probably figure it out. But it's not a terribly high priority right now. So for the moment, it's easier to just, like, I've got these physics cubes in the test map, but I don't have them in any of the levels. And then the enemies themselves just don't have physics on them. That's the best solution I have for now. But I agree it would be cool to make that an actual thing where you can, like, kick enemies around. It's just physics, time step, Unreal, like, it's just complicated. This is the kind of stuff that, like, C++ people would probably know about. But that's not me. I don't know it. I've got limitations. I know everyone likes to think I'm an expert, but just because I have 100k subs does not mean I'm an expert. There's still heaps I don't know. I'm just figuring it out. Does Gabi's moves change when the low FPS? No. And that's why I know this is complicated, because the amount of time it took me to make Gabi's movement frame rate independent was insane, okay? I don't know if you guys remember the devlog I did on this. This was maybe a couple years ago, where I redid her movement for like the final time. To make it so that her sliding and her wall running speed and her momentum was frame rate independent. Oh my god, man. It was... That might have taken like 2 months of like me bashing my head against the wall every day, trying to figure it out, to understand how this works. The solution ended up being kind of simple, but kind of not simple at the same time. Counterintuitive, I think, is the better word for it. It was a bit counterintuitive, but I figured it out. The thing is that Gabi's physics is not actually physics, which is why it was a bit easier to fix. All of her movement stuff, like her friction, her the way that she speeds up when she slides, that is fake. None of that is actually real. That is not NVIDIA physics, whatever. That is all manually programmed in by me, which is why I can make it frame rate independent, because I have control. The cubes and the enemies, however, are NVIDIA physics. That's the default, whatever the hell Unreal's physics engine is. I don't know what it... I'm just using the word NVIDIA physics because I just assume that's what it is. I don't actually know what it is, though. But it's simulated, which means I have no control over it, because it's just doing it. There's no intentionality. It's all just computer generated. That's why it's going to be a bit of a... I just know from experience that it's not an easy just change this variable level fix. It's probably something really deep in the engine, and I don't really want to touch it, okay? I don't want to go near it because I don't know what I'm doing. But I know that it's not as simple as just clicking a button. That's all I know. It's one of those things that you can't just fix with a Google search, because I've tried. It just doesn't work. So there's that. Like, yeah, having the cube, because the thing is that the physics simulation is more complicated. It's got to like calculate its thing when it gets hit from different angles and when it falls and when it has buoyancy and gravity and all this stuff. Gabi's movement does not really have most of that stuff. It just has an equation to calculate friction, and that's it. And that's controlled very, very, very meticulously through other parts of her movement. So things like my code for her sliding and stuff, it just changes up friction values a bit. And then my friction calculations, which are like compact, airtight, made, purpose-built, they kick into gear and do what they need to, no matter the frame rate. There is, however, on the topic of that, I don't think I've told you guys about this. Maybe some of you have had this issue. If you're an Unreal dev, maybe you've ran into this issue, because Gabi is derivated from the default Unreal character. The character class, using the character movement component, which is the standard movement component, which is great because it gives you lots of functionality that you don't have to code from scratch. For instance, if I jump on these platforms, Gabi will stay on them. And if you're not a game dev, you might think, oh, well, of course. But if you are a game dev, you know that it doesn't just do that on its own. Back when I was doing Unity, because that was a period where I used to use Unity like 10 years ago, when I tried coding my own character movement class, it doesn't do this stuff for you. You have to like know how inertia works and program all of that in manually, and it's a pain, and it's so painful. And getting that to work at varying frame rates and having inertia and friction and all that, it's a pain. So that's the cool thing, is that because this is using Unreal's one, it has inertia and everything all programmed in for things like moving platform support and crouching, sliding, rescaling the collision, turning. That's all just there, and it works. It's amazing. However, there is a downside, and that there is a slight part of the movement that is frame rate dependent, and I'm not sure if anyone's noticed. But if I go on this dash pad, it becomes obvious when I get really fast. When I start going fast and combine it with my momentum code, it's the frame rate dependency of the original movement becomes evident. I'm just trying to get it to work because there we go. So I think it becomes obvious when you turn the character. So when I turn Gabi and go on this dash pad and turn like this, you can see that she turns, and it looks normal. But if you run the game at a lower frame rate and you try turning, it's a bit harder to notice, but there's more slidiness. I'll try to build up. It's a bit easier if I build up. I gotta build up a lot of speed for this to be noticeable. I'll go down the big hill, the big slippy slide, and you'll see what I'm talking about. If I go down the big slippy slide and then try turning, I think on controller it's a bit easier to notice, but she has drift when the frame rate is lower and not when the frame rate is higher. And that isn't my code doing that. That's the Unreal default rotation code doing that. Which I don't know how to fix because it's a C++ class as well. So when I turn the character, you have to be going a certain speed for it to kick in. If you go faster than a certain value, you get like drift, where she like starts skidding. But if you have the frame rate higher, it doesn't happen as much. So that's another thing. So that's something that, like, in terms of my priority, because this is stuff I'm gonna have to fix later because I have other stuff to do, but in terms of priorities of what I'd have to fix, I would rather fix the default character friction somehow before I would do like physics sim, because I feel like that is more important, that Gabi's turning is frame rate consistent, than having like physics objects in the game, just personally. But anyway, it's it goes to show you how complicated it is, where even Epic haven't figured it out. And maybe it's just a limitation of computers. That's kind of the conclusion I've come to, is that with a lot of these things, I think a lot of it comes down to the fact that there are just limits on like computers as like the way processors work and process instructions over time. There's limits to these things, but I'm sure there's got to be some way to at least alleviate it a bit. But that's like a whole world I'm not privy to. Again, my background is not programming, so I don't. There's probably a lot more to this that I don't know. But yeah. Palipniv, I don't know how to pronounce your name, sorry. Thank you. Yeah, I've put in a lot of work to the animations. Can't begin to imagine how coded that to work. Yeah, it was a bit of a nightmare, but we got through a lot of it. But yeah, I put in a lot of work to the animations. Thanks for noticing. They could just have physics movement on a fixed time step. Maybe. Look, I vaguely know what that means. There is an issue with fixed time step though that I've noticed, because this, I don't know if this is like in all cases, but back in the day when I was using Unity, I did use fixed time step on things sometimes, and it caused issues with jitteriness. But it was a long time ago, so I don't remember the exact thing. I think it was something to do with the character movement being on a fixed time, because I think the Unity character I was using, it had a bunch of, it was using rigid body physics, which, big mistake, but that's what it was using. And because it's rigid body physics, it has to be on a fixed time step to be consistent and act consistently. The thing is that the camera wasn't on a fixed time step. So you'd have this issue where the camera would update more often than the character would, and you'd get stuttering. If the fixed time step wasn't, if the fixed time step was lower than the game's frame rate, which if you're running the game at 60 frames a second on a 60 hertz monitor, and it doesn't ever deviate from 60 frames a second, then that's fine. But most of the time, that's not the case. Most of the time, this game is going to be running on someone else's computer who might have a better graphics card that can run it at higher than 60, or they're running on a potato that runs it lower, in which case fixed time step then completely falls to pieces, because it relies on the frame rate. At least from what I know, it relies on the frame rate. The fixed time step is fixed, but if you want it to sync up with everything else that isn't on a fixed time step, it has to be in sync. As far as I know, with the Skyrim mods that I've just looked at briefly, it looks like the tactic they use is changing the fixed time step in real time. But that's all. I don't understand how the hell that works. I'm not Bethesda. I'm not at the level where I can fix a Bethesda game. That's not the level I'm at. Skyrim modders, I'm here. Skyrim modders are like up here, dude. Like those guys know what they're doing. I am just trying my best. Best of Backfire says that sounds like a bad idea. I mean, it could be. You know, it might be for all we know. I don't know though. I have no idea. And it could be the case that maybe Bethesda have those problems on purpose, because maybe it is a bad idea, and Bethesda went, you know, we're just going to V-sync the game at 60, and they did that on purpose. Maybe. But I don't work there. I don't know. I just know that, like, this whole rabbit hole of, like, physics and frame rate is freaking complicated. Okay, that's all I know. It's complicated. It's really complicated. Oh, thanks, Friendmaster. No, will she wield weapons? No, she will not. There was a point in the game where I had guns, but I don't know, man. It just didn't feel right, so I took the guns out. But she doesn't need weapons, okay? Gabi doesn't need them. I'll open up the level again. I'll show you what she has instead of weapons. It's even better. She has swag. And more. Hold on, I'll show you. Bethesda had frame rate dependent issues at 76. Oh yeah, that's right. I mean, that's it's been an issue in like every game. That's why I'm telling you that it's complicated, because even a AAA studio with billions of dollars owned by Microsoft can't do it. So it's like, trust me when I tell you that this is not some quick, I can just watch a 15-minute YouTube tutorial and fix it. Even Microsoft owned studios can't do it. It's probably like, if they can't do it, then it's probably actually that kind of hard. But yeah, this is what Gabi, this is why she doesn't need weapons. She has herself. She is the weapon. Become the weapon. That was like a tagline for a game, wasn't it? There was some game, maybe it might have been 10 years ago, where it's like become the weapon. I don't know what game it was, but it's going to be Project Feline will be that game now. We're gonna borrow that tagline, become the weapon. Because I mean, yeah, why will she ever need guns if she can just, you know, give him an old kick, do a few backflips on him? That's all you need, and it just looks cooler than shooting. Because shooting, as we all know, shooting is bad. You know, I don't want people, you know, blaming my game for violence in America. So we're not going to have shooting, but we will have acrobatics for sure. Hell yeah. Was it the prototype I did? It had weapons in it, but the thing is that because I think I was just copying Titanfall at the time. And I sucked at playing Titanfall at the time, and I always had a huge issue with I couldn't aim when I was moving, and it was annoying because I'm like, the game wants me to be careful and precise and shoot, but it also wants me to go fast. And I had a real tough time. It was really annoying for me to like want to aim at something and wall run at the same time. And I'm like, I'm just going to take shooting out of my game because I can't do this. In retrospect, though, that is a big skill issue because I have practiced more Titanfall and it's actually, I'm better at it now. But in my game, it's third person. It's a bit different. And shooting is not, because a lot of the time you got to aim away from the wall to shoot stuff, which has issues with my game being at the camera angle it is. Because when you try to look, if I wanted to look at something next to me like that, now Gabi's taking up the whole frame. So I just thought, no, we won't have shooting. We'll just do it the old fashioned. We'll do it the way the old people did before guns existed, which was, you know, flying through the air at unrealistic speeds past the speed limit, and just backflipping them. That's, you know, that's how cowboys used to do it. So I thought, hell yeah, we'll just do it like that. And I think it looks kind of cool, personally. The end of Titanfall 2 with auto aim was satisfying. Yeah, it was. It was, not gonna lie, it was satisfying. But I think it was only satisfying. Here's my counter devil advocate here. I think it's only satisfying because they saved it for the end. If the entire game had that, it would get kind of lame because the game is just shooting for you at that point. I think the only reason it was cool is because they saved it, and they saved it for the end, and it feels like this OP moment. But I think if they gave you that at the beginning where you're auto-aiming all the time, the novelty it would wear off like immediately, and it's just like, oh, I wall run and then I click the mouse every so often, and I don't know. I get why there's a reason why they saved it for the end, and I kind of get why they did that. What art style are you going to use to feed the environment? Well, currently, we went through this a few streams ago. I don't know if you were here for it, but because we've had a lot of struggles with that. I don't know if you've seen the latest devlog, but we had a big saga with figuring that problem out. What I'm doing right now, what I'm aiming for is, because I don't really think of it in terms of genre or style. I'm thinking about it more in terms of technique, because that's kind of the way I have to look at it. I'm trying to go for like 2005 Jetix Saturday morning cartoon anime. I'm just trying to, because I don't actually know, because I watched like one show on that TV channel when I was a kid, but I'll search up the one I know. I don't know if this will come up in Google search or not. I think it's just going to come up with wallpapers, not actual backdrops. But it's sort of this style, but again, it's all going to come up with character renders and not actual backdrops. Something like this, maybe. This has a bit of a backdrop to it, but it's hard to point it all out. That's the thing, because the quality does vary a lot. But because this now apparently has some new series that's all detailed, which is fine, but it's not what I want. But it's this. This was from like what, 2007 or something. And this is it's not the greatest shot, again, because it's really hard to find reference for this. But this is sort of, in terms of the fidelity, it's kind of what I'm trying to get at, where you've got some structures that are like colorful, but not particularly, there's no PBR crap in it. It's just like nice shading and stuff. I'm more thinking about colors and all that sort of stuff. So this nice blue of the background, it's really cool. The atmospheric fog. And as for, I'm probably not going to have dirt in my game because it's just hard, but it's this sort of like, intentionality is the key word. So with intentionality as the key, I've had to do a lot to Unreal to get rid of its unrealness. So I've had to turn off all the post-processing and everything, get rid of all the reflections. And I'm trying to go for like a, not super low fidelity, like not PSX, not that low, but like a quality PSX, where it's like you don't have the novel, like the nostalgia, like shimmering polygons and like 16 by 16 textures. It's like an improved version of the techniques of that is sort of what I'm trying to aim for. But I'm a bit of the way there. There's still a bit of work, of course, that is going to be required. But this is shaping up much closer to what I was wanting, just this level I've been doing, than previous attempts. The main thing at the moment is lighting, is the thing I got to figure out, because I know the lighting is average, and it needs to look better than average, and I haven't figured that out yet, but it's something I'm trying to research in the background. But the key is just like hand done textures, intentional lighting, and like colors that are chosen on purpose. And then yeah, just getting, I think with those combination of things, it becomes easier to get a look like this. This isn't a great example though. It's because there's something about the look that I can't describe, and that's the thing that's really difficult, is that I can't actually explain it. I just know it when I can see it, and I don't know if other people can see it. But this is a greater example. I don't know if you can see what I'm seeing if you just look at the floor. Like, just the floor, I know this is very low detail, but the way that the specular on the floor looks, where it isn't this RTX fizzy crap, it's very smooth and glossy, but not over glossy. It's not like you just chuck on high specular on it. It's very intentional. I mean, you've got these little stripes on the desk, the little edges contour, like the edges are very accentuated. And this isn't cell shading though. That's the thing, is that a lot of people tell me that to just put a cell shader, but that's not the look. That's on the characters only. This background stuff is not cell shading. Like this here, where they have like you see the cell, you can see the difference, right? Like, because every time I try to explain this, like nobody notices it, and they just think it's all cell shading. But if you look closely, you see the characters have like they got the line art, they got the flat colors, flat shadows, and then you look at the couch and it has more tones. It's got like the accentuated edge, it's got the blur, it's got the little shadow here, it's got the little ambient occlusion. Like, you look at the creases of the couch, it has it, but it isn't like overdone ambient occlusion like Far Cry 3. It's like it's intentional ambient occlusion that isn't just added to everything for no reason. Like, they put it in here, just in this crease. And like, I don't know what that's called. I don't know all the technical high art terminology. Okay, I'm not like a university educated guy. I'm just an average IQ person trying to explain this. But I know that there's something going on, and there's something with this that you can't just get by just chucking models. Like, putting a cell shader that's not how you get this look. That's the characters. But the background, it's something else. But I know that you can't do it with just materials. It's got to be like hand-done texturing. That's all I know. And then there's like certain post-processing they do, like very subtle as well on top of that. But again, I don't know if does that make sense? Like, I don't know if that like means anything to anyone except me. Like, does that, you guys see the things I'm seeing? You guys see like the sort of glossiness? I don't know if that's like the word, but That's why it's really hard to write briefs about this stuff, because I can't explain it, but I just know it when I can look at it and go that, but I can't explain what's actually going on. I don't know. You guys kind of see it, right? So I'm trying. So what I've got at the moment with just my environment, I know that it isn't exact. I know, but it's closer to that than Unreal Engine 5. The look, the Unreal 5 look. So I've tried to do it with like the minimal lighting, where every light source is like got intentional direction on it. It isn't just global illumination everywhere. I've tried to, you've got a bit of shadows going on. I've tried to do something similar where, you've got like little shadow contours there, and a lot of it is texture work. That I know for certain is that it's mostly texture work. The tricky thing as well is, because I said a few streams ago, I'm leaning very hard into Quake in terms of their techniques. And my goal is to basically use the Quake ethos of building maps combined with these aesthetics, which I have never seen done, which is why it's hard to explain, because I don't know a single game that does it this way. I know that there's popular anime games that imitate it, but it's not it. Like, what's this one I keep hearing about? Genshin Impact. This is one of the popular games that you kids play. People were going to bring up this, but this is not the look. Just because it says anime does not mean it's the look. Like, if we look at this picture, for instance, I'm going to try and explain why it's different. the reason this is different is that you look at this and you can instantly tell that this is a 3D in-game screenshot, like immediately. But it looks, the colors are like anime enough where it's like, oh, it's an anime game. But that's the impression, is that you don't think this is actually an anime. You just think it's an anime game. And that's like, that means that they failed to get the look, because it still looks like a video game. And even the character, you might think, oh, well, it's got cel shading on it, and it's cool. But even here, it's sort of, if we go and look at the actual picture from an anime, you can instantly, I don't know if, like, I'm trying to find the words, but you can tell immediately that it is not genuine, this one. I don't know if it's just me that notices it, but the hair strands are too detailed. There's too much rim lighting. It looks like a Vroid character that's imitating an anime character. It doesn't look like an anime character, because the fidelity is a lot lower. They're putting in less because they have to hand do these keyframes like every time. This is like too much effort and detail for a hand-drawn cell animation, and that's why it looks like a video game character. And I will say it's good though. Like it's one of the better ones I've seen. I haven't played the game, but I've seen like these pictures of it, and it does look good. But there's a little bit of it that just holds it back, where you know that it's like too detailed. Like the hair shading is all gradual. Like it has this gradient, and it's got like these nice brush strokes, and that's how like DeviantArt looks. Like when you go look at anime just on Google, you look at stuff like this. That is that look, but this, no one is going to look at this and actually think it's from an actual cell used in a show, because it's too detailed. Like you get what I'm saying? Like I know I'm fixating on the hair, but the hair is very obvious. You see this sort of thing they do with like the milky shading, and then you look at an actual, like that is not happening here. They're just using lines. But this is the stuff that makes it look fake. Like this is actually hand drawn though, but you know that this is not in motion. That's what I mean. This is an illustration, and it's different. Because there's anime illustrating, and then there's anime animation. I guess this is manga. I think that's the correct terminology. I don't know. I don't live in Japan. I don't know the terminology. But I know that this is not, you can't animate this. And the look I'm going for is that it was as if you turned on your TV at like 7 in the morning, and JetX came on. Except it's better because you can play it. That's what I'm trying to do. That's the look. So that's why with me, that's why I've chosen all the stuff like the low FPS animations and everything, because I want it to look so convincing that it's like being drawn as you're playing it. And I know that I won't be able to get it perfect, but I'm trying as hard as I can to get it to look like that, because it'll just be sick. Like it would look awesome if I got to that level. So back to the question about environments. I'm currently in the process of refining the workflow to try to capture that look in 3D, because that's the tricky thing, is that you can capture it in a drawing and that's all fine, but getting it in 3D is tricky. But I'm using a combination of old 90s mapping techniques and texturing and lighting to try and get this. And the next thing I want to look into is old school lighting, like vertex lighting. And because the thing is that I can see a bridge between this and old maps, and I know it might not be obvious straight away, but when you look at old like Quake 2 or something, I know that it's a video game and it's like a different art style, but there is a quality about the art style that is in common with this, that is not in common with this. And it's intentionality, that's the word. It's the fact that when Quake mappers were making stuff, the computer was not adding bounce lighting everywhere and reflections everywhere on its own. It was the artist had full control over what you were seeing. And I know that that's the key, is that in both, the thing that these both have in common, even though they're completely different mediums with completely different styles, the thing they have in common is that the person making it is exerting complete control over the frame on what you're seeing. So like with this, it's like the lighting is all deliberate. It's all on purpose. But this is, you can kind of tell that they've done mostly it's pretty good, but you can tell that there's that level of the game engine doing stuff, and it's very obvious with the water, because and I've not seen anime water that looks this detailed. It's too much. Like, no artist is going to be going and hand drawing translucent water like that, from what I've seen. Maybe anime now does that. I mean, I don't watch a lot of anime, but maybe today the fidelity bar has raised. But I'm looking at mid 2000 stuff because it's trying to do, because I remember I was trying to do, like, previously, I was trying to kind of get this guy's look, but I realized that this is, like, too much. The sort of Your Name aesthetic. It's gorgeous. Don't get me wrong, this is beautiful. But this is too... I found that it's, like, too hard to screw this up in 3D. Because this is sort of the cream of the crop. This is amazing. But to get Unreal... a game engine to get this look, it's too close. Like, the techniques you have to do is too close to the default Unreal thing that it wants to do, where it's too easy to make it look default, and more often than not it'll look default. And in my previous level, if you go and look at my older devlogs, you see that I fail and it looks too default. So I'm leaning in the other... I'm going a complete 180 in the other direction now. I'm staying the hell away from this. I mean, this is gorgeous, but this I can't do it. Like, it's just... I know it's unrealistic. So I'm going for this... get this out of... where was it? I'm going... no, that's not it. Where was it? Like, this type look... which... it's still anime. Like, that's the thing. It's still anime. It's just this is what anime was, like, 10 years ago. And that is, it looks to me like it's more realistic to achieve than this. Like, this, you have to like know more than I do about everything to get this in Unreal without it looking like a UE5 game. That's the thing. You can get close, but if it's anything near looking like a UE5 game, then it's over. Like, people are just going to look at it and go, oh, it's another UE5 game, and it's going to run like crap anyway. So that's the tight balancing act. So I'm staying the hell away from that. We're trying this out. Anyway, sorry, that was a very long answer to that question, but because I've had this on my mind for a while, and each time someone asks me that, I try to do like a better job of explaining it so that I know what to look for. But I don't know, it's complicated stuff, because I don't like environments anyway. Like, I'm not an environments guy. I'm a characters guy. I could explain it in the characters just fine. It's just the environments. It's not my natural inclination, but I'm learning it. I'm figuring it out. Sorry, chat, where are you guys? Sorry, I had you on another tab there. Billy B, am I pronouncing that right? Billy Bilby? I just remembered a detail I wanted to point out about your shading on your character. The cell shading things sometimes make weird lighting where she gets the nose lit up and it looks weird. Yeah, it will do that. And unfortunately, I do have to just accept that as a limitation. Because I'm doing this the Guilty Gear way, their method is designed to have the lighting on the character be manually controlled each frame, which I can't do in this type of game because it's a 3D game. It's not at a fixed perspective. So there are some compromises like that I have to make, where you can see here that it's glitching out a little bit. Actually, even in Guilty Gear, you will see little glitches like this too. It's just less noticeable. And I thought, well, if they weren't able to get it 100% perfect, then that's probably okay then. The way I would fix this, because the reason it's looking weird in this one is because the lighting is directly downwards. So if I just angle it a little, it'll fix it a little. But that's probably the best I'll be able to do. But I accept that there's gonna be little things like that I just can't really do anything about, and I'm okay with that. That's fine, because I did the best I could. But I think when you try to overdo it, then it takes, because you know how like when you have you've got 90% and then there's the last 10%, but the rule is that the last 10% is actually just another 90%. It's reached the point with the shader where it's at the 90%, but to get to the 100% is going to take, it's diminishing returns, where it's like to just get the extra 10% is going to require that a 90% more effort. And there's a line you have to draw at some point where it's like you accept that, like even Walter White, he couldn't get 100%, okay? He got 96%. And I'm thinking, well, look, if 96% enough was good enough for Heisenberg, then that's probably okay, There's probably a reason why he wasn't at 100%. And that's just life. I find. As perfectionistic as I try to be, you can't ever really get it 100%. You can get like 96.2%. That's kind of the ceiling usually. Maybe a supplemental light to the character. Yeah, I'd have to change the way the shader works for that to do that, which is not a terribly high priority at the moment. The main thing is because, again, this lighting was very rushed, so it doesn't. There's going to be issues like that. But if we go to one of the other maps, like the example is just to do the scene lighting in such a way where that isn't as obvious. So for the test scene, because I have the light at an angle, it's less obvious here. There might be a little glitches here and there, but it's more forgivable because the face looks better, because the light is tilted and it's not going straight downwards. That's kind of the strategy I have to deal with those problems at the moment, is just placing the lights in general in a way that won't make those problems obvious. Might be important if you do cinematics. Well, yeah, if I did cinematics, it would be a problem. So my solution there is to just not do cinematics and do something else. I've got a plan for that. I won't reveal all that yet, but I have a plan of how I want to do things like that. But it's not going to be like in-game cinematics. It's going to be too much work. Mongo Bongo says, just hire someone. Just hire more devs to do a better shader. What could go wrong? Oh yeah, no problem. I'll do that with all the funding I don't have. Yeah, no problem. Yeah. What I think about the Pokemon, I don't have any thoughts. I don't watch Pokemon. I don't know. But yeah. Yeah, I don't know about. I'll look it up. You guys keep mentioning it. Is this some new thing? I've never seen this before. That is not in game, is it? That looks like a TV show. Is this it? I don't know. You guys are gonna have to give me some context here. I have no idea what I'm looking at. Oh, where's the chat? Where are you guys? What are you saying? Can I move this to another tab? Pokemon XY. Do you think Gabi would have effort vocals? I would like to do that, yes. But yeah, something like that. The thing is that vocals is kind of tricky, like efforts, as you call them. That's kind of tricky too, because I've noticed that a lot of... It's one of those things that everyone wants to do for their game, right? Like everyone wants to have vocals, because every game they've ever played has cool effort sounds. But I've tried looking around at just other indie games and fan games. I think Sonic fan games in particular, you could notice this, where there's a bit off topic, but while we're on it, because I've had a lot of thoughts about this for a while, and this just goes to show why voice acting is not as easy as just hiring voice actors and just recording and then you're done. Because I've noticed in a lot of fan games, because I noticed it, with things like this, with fan games in particular, because these are not like, they're mostly hobbyists that like do voice acting as like a side gig, but they don't have like a talent agency or a union or anything. They're just people that like voice acting and they're passionate about voice acting. But because they don't have like the training, what they do is, I've noticed this in Sonic fan games in particular, is that they just imitate Jason Griffith, but they aren't Jason Griffith. So it just sounds weird. And the efforts have like, they're putting in too much effort into the efforts, because in their mind, they've practiced the effort over and over of making it sound the exact way Sonic grunts. But because they're thinking about it too much, you can hear... I don't know if you guys notice this. Maybe it's just me, but it feels like whenever I look at like some video where it's like, Sega, hire this man, he made a Sonic fan game in Unreal in 2 days. Usually in those sorts of things, I'll have some guy doing the voice acting for Sonic, but you can tell that it's a fan that hasn't been trained, because they're trying too hard to do the efforts. Like, I don't know if it's just me. Like, am I the only one that like finds that a problem? I don't know. Maybe I'm just being too critical, but it's distracting because I get taken out of the game, and I'm trying to... Is Pokemon XY... I can't tell if this is a game or an anime. Is it a game or an anime? You're gonna have to fill me in with this. But you know what I mean? Where it's like when they jump, the effort they do is like too much effort for a jump. Like when a character jumps in a game, they might do like a, I don't know, like a whoo or something. But the guys that have like been thinking for years about getting to do a jump effort for a game character, that's like their life dream. When you have someone like that, they overdo it so that when the character jumps, they go whoo or something like that. Or, you know, or they try to do like the Jason Griffith like high voice on it. And it sounds fake. It sounds like they're just imitating Jason. And it doesn't sound genuine. And it completely, like, my brain instantly leaves the game and it goes into the recording booth where that was done. And it's distracting. So that's why I'm extremely skeptical of any voice work at all, because I know that I get a lot of people emailing me like every week wanting to do it. And usually they don't have a portfolio. So I already know that it's someone it's generous and nice and everything, and that's great. But everyone wants to voice act for games. That's the thing, and you gotta. There's a lot of. It's a high demand, high competitive thing, and it's, you know, there's a reason why. I don't know, because professional voice acting. I'm not a professional, and I don't know anything about voice acting, but I know that there's more to it than just grunting into a mic and imitating Jason Griffith. I know there's more to it than that, but I don't know the specifics. But anyway, use AI voice. Oh no, man! No, did you not listen to a word I said? No, you can't just chuck an AI on it. That's even worse, because the reason the AI is worse is because they have the opposite problem, where they don't think at all, because it's not an actual intelligence. So the problem with an AI voice is that it sounds soulless, and because it's not a person, it's just a robot, and it sounds like they don't actually, like, you know, like when you're acting, I don't know, maybe actors, I've seen actors talk about this where it's like they have to like get into the scene or whatever, and AI can't do that. And that's like, yeah, it's just not gonna, like, it'll work for like a podcast or a YouTube video, but not for a game. Like, I know everyone loves AI now, but like when you actually hear what good voice acting sounds like, you know that you can't just copy it with AI or, you know, a high school student that loves voice acting. Like, there's a lot more to it than meets the eye, or meets the ear, I should say. Anyway, so this Pokemon thing, is this what I'm looking at? Because this does look pretty cool. I'm not gonna lie, it looks like a modern 2000s anime in terms of the way it does the color and the light and the line art and everything. It looks really, really cool. It's like a 2000s anime in HD, which looks pretty sick. But yeah, like these backgrounds, actually this is a good reference, because the backgrounds here are very much what I was trying to describe. Like you see here, I know the glossiness is tuned up a bit, but there's a difference between this glossiness and RTX. You get what I'm saying? I don't know if that makes sense, but you get what I'm trying to say? You get what I'm saying? But this kind of background, a lot of it isn't even the shading, it's the color choice. And Unreal does not give you lots of controls over the colors by default, so it's tricky like that. But I gotta see if this is also a game. Okay, it turns out there's also a game, but it looks like a DS game. This might be a bit too extreme, but this is actually not bad. The environments, if you just imagine them with higher quality textures, this is actually kind of good. This is kind of what I would want. If this was running not on a Nintendo DS. But this is actually, yeah, like, if you just take off the Nintendo DS aliasing in your imagination for a second, and imagine this on a television, this is pretty good. But the reason is because it's the same principles as the Quake map. It's because there isn't any actual lighting. There's no directional, no one has just chucked in a directional light in Unreal to make this. This is all like manually done lighting, manually done textures, everything, which is why it looks so good. That's pretty neat though. I'll keep that open for research later, because that's pretty sick. XYZ was peak Pokemon. Okay, because I don't know all the acronyms. I know that there's like Pokemon Sapphire, and that's like all I know. I know, sorry guys. I know I like the anime art style, but I have not watched Pokemon. I have never researched Pokemon. I'm sorry. I'm not actually a weeb. I'm so sorry, guys. After all, I'm a fraud. I'm so sorry. but I'll Pokemon XYZ. I'll have a look. I'm trying to think because sorry, where's chat? Chat's vanished. Looks like a DS game. Oh, it's a 3DS game. Oh, sorry, my bad. My bad, guys. It was not a DS game. It was a 3DS game. Billy, sorry, I'll read something. You have some good insight here, it looks like. If your game is meant to be played at fast speeds, you don't need that extra 10%. Yeah, I mean, I agree with that too. You don't need it to be 100% if you're going that fast. Might become important. Yeah, with cinematics, like I said, I'm not going to do like insane cinematics. Just budget as well, because like doing in-game cinematics is costly, and I'm not rich, so I can't really afford to do that. I remember some VNs using real photos and passing them through a filter. I've tried that sometimes. I get like mixed results with it, but my strategy at the moment, we'll go back to the lab real quick. After this quick discussion, there's one more thing I want to show, and then I'll have to get going. But at the moment for the level, I think I mentioned this briefly last week, but I didn't go into it. But I said that there is a difference between kit bashing and like actual design. And kit bashing is very commonly associated with like just marketplace assets, asset flip stuff. And I said that this is technically an asset flip as well, but I didn't elaborate. And I will take the moment to elaborate now. So these textures, I did not make these textures. These are from some textures website. These are like paid licensed textures. And the point I was trying to make with that is that, you know, with asset flipping, it's a bit of an overused term, but I think the thing people get with asset flipping is that the issue is not that it's using pre-made assets, it's that it's using bad art direction. That's usually the issue people actually have with asset flips, is that there's no cohesion. So what my strategy is for environments and texturing is trying to collect as many textures that fit the style as possible, which is easy to do now because I know the style. I know what I want them to look like. And I'm sure that there are heaps of existing textures for different locales that I could collect. Because that's going to save lots of time. And I want to reserve doing them manually for extreme cases. So there are some instances here where I might want to brighten up the walls or something. But I want to start from the shoulders of giants as much as possible, just because it's... Because you if you can avoid reinventing the wheel, you should, I think. So my strategy is doing asset flipping the right way, where you actually have art direction beforehand and you know what assets you're looking for. So I've had to scour far and wide to find things. So far, I just found this sci-fi texture pack that fit my needs pretty well. And I've used it very deliberately. But you wouldn't know immediately, I don't think. It doesn't look like just an Unreal asset flip immediately, because I've tried to be very careful with everything. So my strategy is to just keep finding like textures that 99% fit the aesthetic and start from there. And then if there's cases where it really needs touching up, then I go in and do something. But making textures from scratch is a lot of work. So I'm just trying to use materials as much as possible. But not just anything. That's the difference between an asset flipper, is that an asset flipper will just use anything, but I'm being extremely selective about what I will use. So at the moment, I've just got this one texture pack, which is done pretty good. I love these tiles in particular. I like them. And it has the right look. But there's probably going to be cases where I have to do some manual ones, and I'm getting the hang of how that's going to work. And yeah, I might do things like filters. I'll do whatever I can, but I'm trying as much as possible to get it as good as possible with existing things, and then saving that last 10%. Only if something really needs the extra 10%, then I go in and do it manually. That's sort of the attitude, because you got to be conservative with this stuff, I find, because it's very easy to overdo it and, you know, spend too long. So that's the tricky balance that you got to strike, I find. But yeah, how do you look in the shader graph material editor to give the core shader your own flip? Yeah, so at the moment I do have a master material for everything, but it's so basic, dude. It's so primitive. But I know what you mean. Yeah, I'm probably going to add a bit to it, but at the moment it's literally just albedo That's it. There's nothing. When I said I turned off all the Unreal things, I meant it. No metallic, no specular, full roughness. And I even went in and did the tick box where it says, like, you know, there's a button in here that says like full roughness or something. It's all like, it's the most basic material ever. So I would like to eventually add maybe some kind of the specular. Getting specular that looks like anime, I think, is going to be what I might try doing. But that's tricky because you can overdo it and make it look like Unreal, which is what I want to avoid. But the kind of specular, like in these pictures, or what that the Pokemon, where was the Pokemon one? I must have minimized it. Where was it? Like, oh, where was it? I gotta go back. I searched up Pokemon XY, and it was a specific picture. I don't know, kind of like this. You see on the side of the table, it has a bit of glow. Getting that is, I don't know how to do, but I know that it's not as simple as just adding specular. It's got to be a specific type of gradient in a specific direction. So that it's a bit more advanced. I could probably afford to not do that immediately though, because there are other priorities. But yeah, because that's the thing, is that the more you look at it with this reference, the more you can see, like the more I notice each time, and there's just a lot going on. So where do you get the Quake level map editor? I just type in Trench Boom on Google. It'll be like the first result. It's some GitHub IO page. But yeah. The texture is made of a texture and nothing else. Yeah, man. Yeah, that's exactly right. It's just a texture. No normals. No normals. Because I don't know, man. Because when I try using normals, it just looks like Oblivion. You guys know the look? When like normal maps were brand new and everyone just used them everywhere. It looked, I don't know, man. I just didn't. It was kind of interfering with the look. So I reckon, I mean, hell, these Pokemon games that you guys are telling me about, they don't use normal maps. So it's like, if they don't do them, why would I need them? That's sort of my logic. Like this DS game, the 3DS game, there are no normals on this, and it looks gorgeous. And when I say gorgeous, I don't mean like everyone's gonna look at it and go, "Oh, I can see the pixels," and it's like, no, that's not what I mean. I mean it's gorgeous insofar as it's well composed. The color is good, and you know, like, I don't know, you know what I mean. It's good quality, not high fidelity. It's high quality, and this doesn't look like it has normal maps on it at all. And it's like, well, all right, if they don't need it, I don't need it. That's sort of that's my logic. Very bare essentials. Like, imagine this, but you just up the texture resolution a little, and then there you go. That's sort of what I'm thinking. Like like look at that window. That's a gorgeous window. That's the kind of window I want. It's got the nice smear on it. Look at the bookshelves, man. This is gorgeous. Look at the walls. Look at the bricks. It's beautiful. And you know, this doesn't need, like, you don't need PBR normal maps. You don't need it. I mean, it looks great. Just imagine this at 1080p with higher res textures, and it looks beautiful. Like, I don't know if it's just me that thinks that looks good, but it looks good. If you try to add like normal maps and like SSR, it's just gonna ruin it. Yeah, and I think, yeah, the lighting as well. That's the tricky thing, is that I think the lighting is vertex lighting. That's my guess, and that's something I want to figure out, but I haven't had time to work on it yet. The next topic I wanted to cover, because we could sit here for hours and talk about art style. The next thing I wanted to cover is the other thing I've been working on this week, which is the next devlog. So to go off topic for a minute, we're going to switch, because that's all I really have to say in terms of progress on the game. I've just been studying particles, studying art. I know it's not super, wow, Ray got a smoke particle. Oh, wow. Like, I know it's not the most impressive thing in the world. But, you know, sometimes game dev is iterative. You got to take your steps a step at a time and learn stuff. The other thing I've been working on, though, is the episode about Gabi's model. This is the one I've been looking forward to making for a long time. This is going to go over how the what do you call it? Like how I built like her 3D model and everything. I'm going to split it into two parts though. So one half is just going to be the model itself, and then another video is going to be the animations. So going from nothing to this, going through all the procedure of doing the low poly, doing the rigging, doing the texturing, it's all going to be in this video. The progress has been pretty steady, and to give you an idea, this voiceover is like 13 minutes long, and I haven't even gotten up to like to actually getting the detail modeled in yet. We haven't even gotten up to that part, and I have 13 minutes of things to say about how cool this process is. So it might be like, it seems to be we're in this arc of development right now where every devlog is going to be like half an hour. So yeah, to give you an idea of what's actually being talked about though, because the preview is going to be for the patrons only of the actual voiceover, but if I minimize all these topics, there's a lot of subjects. So this is what I've been spending the rest of the week on, is writing all of this. And there's main chapters that I'm breaking it down into. The first part of it is all just, getting the problem, because, and, identifying the problem, because ultimately, it might not be obvious to the viewers what the problem with the old model was. So I want to take time to actually break down all the flaws with it. I think I've done it on stream a few times, but I haven't actually told the viewers, like the regular channel viewers, what's actually wrong. People think it's the animation, but it's something else. And that's kind of what this chapter is about. It's like actually looking at her old model systematically, breaking it down, seeing the flaws, and going, what can we do to fix that? And then ultimately, you guys know what I did. I just redid the whole thing. Then I've got a period here where I actually tried doing the model in Vroid first. I don't know if you guys, maybe you know, maybe you don't, but before I even did it, I tried Vroid. It was terrible. And then I moved on to doing a lot of Arc System Works research. And there's a lot I have to say about that I haven't finished writing. That's when I was doing all I was looking at like Japanese PowerPoint slides. Like that's how deep in the rabbit hole I went. It's pretty full on. And then there's stuff about like their workflow, and then there's all the stuff about like meshing it. And like this isn't even like this is like the first like act out of like 5 acts, and it's already 13 minutes. It's gonna be pretty full on, but there's so much cool stuff about the model that I want to talk about. It's a cool story. I had a lot of fun with it. So it's gonna take a little time just because the subject matter is there's just so much. There's so much to squeeze out from this. And I'm also trying to learn DaVinci at the same time, so it's going to take a bit of getting used to with editing it. What I was trying to do when editing this, I was trying to get like stream clips of me modeling it, because some of you guys might remember when I was streaming the model being made. I've been trying to go back in those VODs and clip bits from it, but there is like hundreds of hours to go through. And after like a day of editing, I thought this is going to take too long. So I've been scripting it instead, like I usually do. And what I will do afterwards, once I've got the script, is I'm going to then look for live stream clips and add them in as B-roll, instead of trying to use my stream clips as the script, because there's just too much. So I'm just condensing it down into a script. And even when condensed down, we already got like a full like 13-minute thing here of just part 1. So it's pretty full on. But I'm very excited to like it's one of the fun episodes to work on though. Sorry, let me just check your messages here. Add a constant plug into the master material normal, you might get an anime look. Constant 3. I don't know what that means. But I'll put that on my notes for later. I don't want to break the materials now, but I'll write that down. Constant 031. Thanks for the tip. I saw his video as a statement on how hiring incorrect help. Oh, are we talking about? Oh, we're talking about the other devlog, are we? Yeah. So at the moment, I haven't really been looking at the last devlog. I do want to give everyone a huge thanks for watching it, though. I think the views are doing pretty good. So thanks so much for that. I appreciate it. I did talk about it a bit last week. I don't know if there's any more I could really say about it, but Yeah, but I've just been focusing on like the next thing because I think dwelling too much on the past is kind of a waste of time. So I've just been steaming ahead forward with this episode, which is this episode will be good. There's not going to be any weird catastrophes this time because I did everything. So I've done all the model and I've done all the research. So there's not going to be a sad ending this time, which I'm very excited about. It's going to be one of the good episodes. Constant 3, just hold left click node editor and add a color node. All right. Well, I'll try. We'll try it out real quick, but I do have to get going soon. But we'll give it a try if it's that easy. Is this on the master material? We'll see. Good ending devlogs are fun. I concur. I've been trying to think because I was trying to think of a way to end the stream because I didn't think I'd have that much to show off this week because it's just been mostly research and writing, which is like it's kind of boring. I know it's not cool fun. I added 10 new mechanics this week, guys. It's not that kind of stuff. It's just like, but that's, in real game dev, that's not how it is, right? So I was kind of like thinking, oh, am I going to have enough to talk about this week? But I don't know. We could spend a little time looking at, because there's some stuff I want to say about game dev because I've been getting a lot of emails lately about advice, and maybe I'll try and impart some of that. But this material thing, we'll get that out of the way. Constant 3 vector 001 like that. Plug it into the master material normal. All right, let's see. That I did that correct, right? I'm just reading the instructions. Constant 300. Okay, I've done exactly as he's described it. Has that done anything? I can't tell. If we unplug that, I can't tell if that what is it meant to do? It would help if I know what it was meant to do. I don't know what this is supposed to do. I'm just following your instructions. Add hold left 3 click node editor, add color node, make RGB. Yeah, okay, I've done that, but I don't know what it's doing. It's I don't notice any visual difference. Is it meant to look something? Drag it as a sphere. As a sphere. Oh, you mean add it to a sphere. Is that what you meant? Okay, we'll chuck it on. We'll move it away from direct lighting. So I'll turn it off and back on and we'll see if there's a difference. Oh! Hold on. Can I put this on another window? Yeah. Let me put that on another window. Oh, oops. I plugged in. I did have a normal map plug that I left unplugged, which I plugged in by accident there. Oh, I think I gotta go back and see. I think I kind of get what you're saying. Okay, when I save it again, see, I don't notice a visual difference. I don't know if it's just like I've got a sphere, and I'm going. I'm just on my other screen here. I'm adding it. I'm hitting apply, save, and I don't like. Is it meant to look different? I don't notice a difference. Is it? Am my eyes deceiving me? Drag it as a sphere to see the difference. It makes the normals point up. Oh, it has to have dynamic. Okay, because I'm not using dynamic lights. That's probably why. This is all baked. This is all baked lighting. That could be why. We'll try this in my test scene though, because surely that would work with baked lighting too, wouldn't it? And yeah, see that's why I try to be. I'm a little selective about taking live advice because, as well intentioned as it is, people. I don't blame it either. That's fine. But like, a lot of you probably didn't know that I'm not using no dynamic lights, which I mean it's not your game, so I wouldn't expect you to know that. That's fine. But that's why, like, that's kind of why for this style it's been really hard to nail because when you search Google. that's kind of the stuff you'll find. And at least with, I don't know, maybe this is for everyone else it works, but whenever I try following stuff, it never works because of some specific thing I've set up that other people haven't set up. And it's just, I always have to end up just figuring out my own thing. But we'll try it now in this scene. And we'll compare it here. And again, this is using a mix of dynamic and static. So yeah, I've just unplugged it and I'm going to replug it. And I don't notice a difference at all. But if it's meant to make it look flat, I mean, I don't know, maybe it's because I've already made it a diffuse material anyway. I don't know if that makes a difference. I don't know if that actually makes a difference at all. Because I don't have any specular, I don't have any roughness. I mean, it's full roughness, no specular, no metallic, diffuse, like it's literally the most diffuse you could possibly make it. So I don't know if that's like already doing what this is supposed to do. So I don't know. I'll have to look into it more off stream probably to figure out what's meant to happen, but it might not work in my case because of how I've got things set up. But I kind of get what you're trying. It's with normals trying to get them to all point in a specific direction. I get kind of the logic. It's just I'm gonna have to work out a way to apply it that works for me. But thanks for the suggestion. I was gonna say, let me just scroll up a bit. Hold on a sec. Sorry if I've missed a lot of messages. I try to make these just sort of show off streams. That's why we've got the TTS on, so it makes it easier. Makes it easier when people do TTS for me to read questions. But there was a message here I wanted to get to about. Loved the Bert and Ernie clip, as it certainly regarding the previous devlog, which if you haven't watched, by the way, you should check out the Bert and Ernie clip, as it certainly describes many issues I encountered myself. But the end take was questionable. Was it? I don't know. I don't think it was. I think I might have said this last week, but regarding I wanted to kind of get into a little topic here, just for the end of the stream, because I think it's probably a good time to as well, because I think a lot of people in the new year, like they want to start. Maybe if you're the kind of guy that does New Year's resolutions, you want to like start making a game. I've gotten a few emails this week from people saying, can you give me advice on it? I just haven't had time to respond. So I'll do a little quick segment here for the stream. And the idea that it was hard to describe. And I think people that disagree with my conclusion is kind of evidence of this. And that's that game dev is not this one size fits all thing where every single person that is a game developer has the exact same personality. And I don't know, maybe I should have gone over that in the video, but I didn't want to turn it into a Psychology 101 video. It's about my story. I think people are kind of taking, the thing is you're not meant to take away a conclusion from it, I don't think, because this isn't your story. If it's your project and your devlog, you can take whatever you want from it because it's yours. So I don't expect people to agree with whatever I'm doing because it's my game and I'm going to do it the whole point of it is that, because the pattern I've noticed for me is that whenever I've tried following advice from other people, consistently there's been a pattern of it not working every time. So, however, because that, you might look at that and go, oh, well, you're probably just following it wrong or whatever. But the counter is that I also have evidence where whenever I've done things intuitively, just based on what I think, it always works. And the thing is that if you're inexperienced like I am, and if you're young like I am, you're not going to have the benefit of life experience to value intuition and external advice correctly. And I think it's hard to notice in the video because it's kind of the thing that's happening underneath. Because the video, I don't think, is even really about the contractor. It's not about the misnamed files. It's about what it means. It's about the work ethic, and it's about in terms of me as a developer, it's about my finally kind of having faith in what I actually think instead of trying to just blindly follow what other people tell me. Because as we've seen, every time I do that, it doesn't work. Every time. And if you go back and watch even previous devlogs, I think as well, because these are a bit older, and I'm not sure if everyone has watched every single devlog, but if you're one of those rare few, which if you are, you're epic. If you have seen that, you probably would have noticed this pattern as well, where every time I try to follow what someone else is telling me to do, it usually just backfires. So my takeaway was, if it keeps backfiring, and I always have this intuition of what I should have done, and when I listen to that, it works, then I should listen to that and it'll keep working. And then it did work, because I think a lot of people are missing the fact at the end where I redid everything and it was better. And I think because I know a lot of people they are terrified of the idea of working alone. It's stigmatized a lot in the industry. A lot of people say that it's stupid and irrational and impossible and that you should never do it. And I think that's kind of a very black and white way of thinking. I think it is true for most people, don't get me wrong, but I think there are a minority of people that are willing, they are actually more capable of sticking it out solo than trying to be a project manager. And I don't think that is an unreasonable conclusion, because, I mean, like, just because you're a game developer, because that's the thing, is that everyone just calls them blanket game developers. But it doesn't mean that all of them have expert management skills, expert programming skills, expert art skills. Like, it's impossible to expect everyone to have all those things. And I think the solo dev route I would discourage if you only just don't like working with people. If that's just the only reason, I would agree it's probably not a good enough reason. The thing is that the secondary reason I have is that not only do I not like the drama of working with people, but I can clearly do it myself anyway. Like, I have the skills to do it. If I didn't have the skills, then it would be stupid. If I didn't have any technical ability, and if I didn't have a work ethic at all, and if I was lazy and I just was, if I didn't have an actual drive to learn the skills, then it would be a stupid idea. I agree. It would be a bad conclusion. But I think everyone is skipping over the part or ignoring the part of the video where I actually fixed it. And that was not because of following some tutorial or following like the conventional advice. I fixed it by doing it my way. And I've noticed a trend just in my own life, because there's a lot of other stories that you guys don't know about from before Project Feline. And I've just noticed that every time when I do it my way, it works. And when I don't do it my way, it doesn't. And that's just it. Like, it's that simple. And I don't expect other people that aren't me to get it. That's fine, because everyone has their own way of doing it. And that's kind of the point. I'm not trying to say that my way is right. I'm just trying to say it's right for me. That's it. So I think people that are trying to come away saying that I think solo dev is the only... everyone should be a solo... That's not what I think, and I don't think that's what I said. I agree not everyone should be a solo dev, but I don't agree that everyone should be a manager either. Because clearly, not everyone can do it. I can't do it. I suck at it. And it's like, yeah, why the hell would I know anything about management? I've never done it. Why would I know? So that's why I think in those circumstances, it's better to do it this way. Thanks so much, by the way, Snupbill, for the, what is that, 20,000 IDR. I'm so sorry, I don't know how to pronounce that currency. Indonesian rupiah. I think that's what it is. Thanks so much for the donation, man. I appreciate it. Mustard. That's a nice message. I concur. Mustard is pretty cool. Thanks so much. But the what was I saying? I forgot. I'll see what some of you say about that. I'm probably going off topic. Your approach seems less how to use this program and more here's the end result. How can I cheese it the system to do that? I mean, I guess so. But yeah, that's the thing too. I think the fact that so many people have different conclusions of my episode proves my point that I shouldn't be managing people anyway. Like, if everyone is coming away with such different conclusions, then that means that I suck at communicating and I shouldn't be managing people. So it's sort of like a thing where it's like, okay, if I'm bad at doing it, I should do the route that leans on my strengths and not my weaknesses. And I like, even if you think because I know people probably think I suck at management. And yeah, I do. So that's why I'm going the route where I don't have to do management, which I think is a huge positive, because I'm doing more of the things I'm good at and less of the things I'm bad at. And I think the thing that seems weird about that to people is that most people are good at management, or, you know, whatever, like the skills that I'm not good at, they are good at. And to them, it won't make sense because they'll say, oh, well, why don't you just be a manager? Because yeah, most people could probably do that, but I don't like management. I didn't do this game to be a manager. I wanted to just sit down and make a game. I didn't want to become like a CEO person. That's not who I am. So if I try to do something against who I am, I just know that it won't work. And, you know, if who I am is a bad manager, but an excellent technical guy that can, like, because yeah, the thing is, most people can probably communicate better than me. They can do management, but they can't do all this by themselves. So the way I see it is, if I have this strength, I got to lean into that more, because that's obviously where my strengths are. And I enjoy this as well. Like, as much as I kind of clown on Unreal and like whinge, I don't hate it. I don't actually hate it. It's just funny. Like, there's funny little bugs, all the physics, frame rate, movement stuff. Like, it's funny, but it's like, that kind of problem I can handle. Like, I can tolerate being uncomfortable with that stuff. But when it comes to like interpersonal things, that's my weakness. And I clearly can't do it. So I'm not going to. I'm going to lean into the stuff the suffering that I'm comfortable with, that's kind of more what I'm advocating for. And I'm just telling my story in the video. I'm not saying that everyone's strengths and weaknesses is going to be exactly mine, but it's not a video about game dev. It's a video about my game. So I think there's a bit of a misunderstanding, but the fact that I misunderstood so much is kind of further proof that I'm right about my conclusion. Because if I can show it to that many people and there's that much disagreement, then it just tells me that if I try to do this again, it's just going to be more miscommunication, more of that. And it's like, I don't want to deal with that. It's just so exhausting. Yeah, like Alpha Moonbase here says, I don't like being a manager. I think that is the correct takeaway. Because it isn't about game devs. It's not about you. I'm just telling my story, and it's about what I'm good at. And it's like, well, I'm not good at this, so I'm not going to do it. I can't speak for other devs because I'm not other devs. I can speak for me. And it's, you know, it's the Project Feline devlog, not a tutorial on how to make games. And I think that's the key thing. That's sort of what I reckon. But in regards to what you can take away from those things that I would recommend, and this is something that I wasn't really able to get to in the video because it would have just taken too long, but I think it's worth because the real challenge there isn't coming to the right answer, because that doesn't exist. The attitude I think to have is, how do you know what your right answer is? And that devlog was just my version of me coming to terms with that. It was just me figuring out what my winning strategy is, which is not going to be the same as everyone. And I think the real thing people should be asking is looking at themselves and going, well, what should I be paying attention to figure out my strengths? And this is where things become a lot less about game development and a lot more about psychology and all of this other woo-woo stuff that I know people probably don't like talking about. Because with programmers, I know the type. Programmers love code. It's cerebral, it's unemotional. But I find that working with people is very much not that. It's very emotional and hysterical, and you have to have more than just technical skills. So, and then like knowing how to lead a project and all that, it all requires, like, I guess they call them soft skills. For me, the way I like to look at it, I don't think I have the best soft skills, but I find psychology very interesting, and I do a lot of reading on psychology in my spare time. And for me, the utility I've gotten out of that is knowing being aware of different personalities and like what their strengths and weaknesses are. So to anyone this year that wants to start doing a project, or to anyone that's emailed me this week asking me this question, this is for you. I would say, if you want to start it, it's not about what tutorials you watch. It's not about what engine you use. Like, all of this stuff is Godot or Unreal the best engine. Like, that is a complete red herring waste of time. That's all fake. Does not matter at all. I think the real thing, if you want to be the guy that's actually going to commit to a project, the tools you use don't matter, like in broadly. It'll matter at a certain point, but the thing that is most important is knowing you, is like knowing your intentions and your strengths and weaknesses. If you don't know that stuff, it's not going to matter if you use Unreal or Unity or Godot. It won't matter, because if you don't know yourself, if you're not paying attention to what you're thinking about, to what your strengths are, it's like you are basically walking in blind, and you're not gonna know what the best route is for you, because there is no best option in general. So I don't know if that makes sense, because this is all not game dev. This is stuff that kind of applies in a more abstract sense. But one thing I am kind of sick of seeing everywhere when I search up game dev on YouTube is just everyone talking about like squabbling over, is Unreal 5's license better than Unity's? Like all this, like, it doesn't matter. Like that stuff is just a distraction. I think the thing that, you just got to figure yourself out. And I think a good way to look at that, and this is probably where I'm going to lose people, because I know not everyone agrees with this, but I think a way to look at that stuff is like knowing that not everyone on Earth has the exact same personality. Because I think a lot of people, when you think of a game developer, you think of like an archetype of like, a nerdy guy with glasses that loves programming or something, that uses Arch. I don't, you know what I mean? Like there's an archetype that comes to mind. But the truth is that there is like many different flavors of game dev. And most of them, like, they're not the same. Like there are going to be some people that are game devs that don't know programming. And there's going to be some people that are game devs that don't know how to draw. There's going to be some people that are game devs that don't have any technical ability, but are good at managing other people to do those. And there's going to be the opposite. And I think the blanket term game dev, it kind of gives you this illusion where you kind of assume everyone is just the typical, like, a game dev nerd guy that loves coding, which is like maybe the majority, but I don't think it represents everybody. So it's but the way to figure it out, I keep talking in circles. The layer I'm trying to get to is like personality types, and there are different ways to measure it. My personal favorites are like the Big Five and the Myers-Briggs. And Myers-Briggs, from what I know, is based a lot on Carl Jung's work. And this is where we're going to get very off game dev and into the deep end. But this is important. I think this is really important. I wouldn't be talking about this stuff if I didn't think it was important. Because this is kind of what, underneath the flavor of my last devlog, this is what's actually going on. It's a clash of personalities. That's what's really happening. It's not about unnamed files. That's just flavor. The real combat is when you have two opposing personalities clash. And the thing is, if you know your personality, and these are all just free tests, so they don't take these as gospel, but they're a useful tool, especially like this one, 16 personalities. And I know not everyone likes these. A lot of people just compare it to astrology, but this is a bit more in depth than astrology. But you should take it with the attitude as a guide, not as like an exact template you have to fit into exactly. But being aware of this is useful. And if you do one of these tests just to get a rough idea, at least in my experience, these have been quite helpful, because it gives me a good idea on what kind of problems I'm likely to have and how I'm likely going to want to deal with them. And I've been in the types that the results I always get the exact same result when I do these. And I've always been in agreement with them, because it's like, oh, that's me. That's literally me, for real. But, and like, yeah, people are going to say this is... I know people hate quizzes. Okay, I know this is wishy-washy psychology, but whether you're aware of it or not, this is happening. And I know programmers like to just withdraw and think that the entire world is just programming, but it's not true. This is important, because not everyone has the same personality. And that's why, for me, I was able to come to the conclusion I came to, because some people will have the personality where they are energized. They have different tendencies to be energized by certain things and drained by certain things. They'll, like one of the very basic version is like introverted and extroverted. Like people know that one and they go, oh, you're an introvert, you're an extrovert. But there's more dimensions than that. That's just one of the dimensions. But that is a big one though. It'll determine whether you want to spend time in a stand-up meeting or not. If you're more introverted, you're probably not going to want to do it. And you might be more inclined to have more self-initiative and be more independent. If you're an extrovert, you're probably more likely to not be like that, and you want to be part of a team. And those things, I know it sounds wishy-washy, but this is why working with people is so hard. Because if everyone had the same personality, it would be easy, but that's not reality. Everyone has different personalities, which is why every single instance I've ever seen of a team has not worked, because everyone just does not get along because they have fundamentally different code. You know, it's if you want to do it the programming way, if you don't believe in psychology, you can do it you can think of it like code, where some people are built in C++, and some people are built in C#, and some people are built in Java. Like, their brain will work in different ways. I don't think that's too far of a reach, but if you want to think about it in strictly game dev programming terms, that's what's going on. And when you have a team, you have a whole group of people that all are functioning with different libraries and different languages that all have different weaknesses and strengths. Some languages are very scalable, some are very not. Like, it's a whole dance of getting all that to work, which is why I have a lot of respect for big studios that can manage all that, because it's really hard. And that's why I know that I'm not that guy. I don't know, because I know from when I do these things, it tells me like the kind of thing I'm going to be inclined to do. And because I already know sort of my general tendencies, I'm inclined to agree. And my type, I'm the kind of type that's fiercely independent. I hate working with people, and I'm like very, what's the word? I'm like very conscientious. But that's not going to be everybody. Like, some people might have a combination of different things. Some people might not be very conscientious, but be very communicative and very, you know, outgoing and friendly. And those people will probably work great in a team. But if you have someone that is like very strictly, you know, not very trusting, not very friendly, but very conscientious, then that guy could probably do solo dev, because he makes up for it in other strengths. And yeah, again, like, it's hard to explain because this is like psychology, and I'm not a psychologist, but these are happening. Like, these variables are at play, whether you're aware or not. So if I don't know, because it's hard, because if you've done this stuff, you'll know what I'm talking about. If you've researched this, you'll know what I'm talking about, and you'll appreciate it. But if you haven't, it's probably going to sound crazy. But like, if it wasn't important, I wouldn't care about it. There's like, this has a place. And you need to kind of, I think if you, for instance, to bring this into a practical instance, because, you know, people have asked how to start a project and like for advice. The thing is, I can't really tell you what will work for me will work for you, because odds are you do not have my personality and you have different strengths. So what will work for me is not going to work. Because for me, I can sit in a room for 8 hours and not get tired and not talk to anyone and get things done. But that is not most people. Just from people I've met, that is not most people. And you know, so just with something like that, of like, what's your stress tolerance? Just with little things like that of, like, if you put two people in a room with different personalities, and one of them had a combination of traits that meant that they quit slightly sooner than the other person when being put in a room to work for 8 hours, it tells you something about like their thresholds of like what they can tolerate and what they can't. And those things will, I think it's good to tailor your strategy to doing anything to your natural thresholds of like what you're naturally going to want to do and what you're not going to want to do. That's kind of the main gist of it. And in terms of how my video ties into that, it was just me reaching out, seeing where my thresholds were, finding that I actually enjoy like working independently more than working as a manager. And if you actually read some of the psychology stuff, it'll be very obvious. Like, you wouldn't even have to watch my video to know that. Like, you would just hear me talk and you would know straight away of that what I would prefer doing, without even having to talk to me that long. And that's the cool thing with psychology, is that it's basically like, it's the source code for the brain. It's like the API for the brain of like how people think. And I think for a cerebral profession like game development, it's important to know, because I know everyone likes to believe everything can be solved with programming, but as we saw in my video, it's not true. You can't just fix everything with code or just watching the best 3D modeling tutorial. It's not how you can't do it. You got to be thinking like a bit deeper as well. But anyway, sorry, that's probably like, I know that sounds like, I don't know if any of that made sense, but I would recommend looking into it just out of curiosity. Psychology makes good games. I mean, yeah, I mean, studios do that, don't they? Like, they hire psychologists for playtesting, you know? They don't do that for no reason. There's a reason they do that. Ugent notice as I remember doing this for school. Cool. Unfortunately, they didn't back in when I was in school. They didn't really do this stuff, but I wish they had. But yeah, we all know the best engine is Scratch. I can't argue with that. Can't argue. And then there's the ideas guy. Well, yeah. See this stuff. This like knowing what kind of personalities people have. You'll be able to predict who the idea guys are. Like without them even opening their mouths usually. That's the thing I really love about this stuff. Billy says, oh sorry, I missed a highlighted message there. From my view, game dev is like a puzzle. You need to solve a problem, come up with a solution. It can be simple as making one small mechanic, or big as having to fix the wrong doings of someone else's on the team. To make a great game, you need to find solutions to problems, not only in code but in management. Yeah, precisely. And what I'm trying to say is that a lot of those problems will come with differences in personality. If that wasn't the case, then everyone would just get along all the time, which I wish was true. I wish, but that's not the world we live in, sadly. They also hire psychologists to make unregulated online casinos. That's true, but that's why psychology is so powerful, is that it works. I mean, I know, like, yeah, I don't like that they do that. I don't like that they're hiring psychologists to make, Mr. Beast's app more addictive to buy more Feastables. I don't like that, but it works. That's how you know it's not just mumbo jumbo, because it actually works. And, that's the thing, is that whether you want to acknowledge that that's real, it is happening. That's why gambling works. That's why the gambling industry is like, that's why if I added a slot machine to my game, it would work, because you're just exploiting the source code of the brain. And, I think it's kind of ignorant to say that, oh, the brain doesn't have source code and I just, I have full control over my brain. It's like, no, buddy. That's not how that works. It's not how it works. So I think it's just, if you're going to start a project this year, to bring this back, to wrap this up, if you're going to start a game this year and you're watching my stuff and you're thinking, I want to do what Raymond's doing, I want to make my own game just like him, you should first figure out if you are the kind of person that could do that. And I don't just mean make a game, because I think there are lots of ways to do it. The thing is that by who you choose to watch, it's going to give you an influence onto how you think you need to do it. And if the people you're watching have a completely different personality to you, you will fail, because what my natural tendencies might be, what my thresholds might be set to a completely different level. And when I say that I can just sit down and I can like not talk to someone for months and just, not, and it won't bother me. Like I can like be completely isolated and not feel like demotivated and feel energized. And if you were to try that and if you're not like that, but you don't know, you're going to sit there and think, oh, this is torture. This is impossible. How can Raymond do this? The answer is probably because you have a different personality. You have different strengths. And the way that I'm doing it is just not you're going to have a different way that you will need to figure out that will work for you, but it might not be my way. And I think that's the attitude more people should be taking, because I'm kind of just sick of this whole thing where everyone thinks that just watching a tutorial is going to solve everything. That's sort of, because that's what happens to everyone that starts a game and then they quit after 2 weeks, is that they follow a tutorial, they look at some YouTuber that's doing it and think, oh, I can be like that. And then they try it and they don't actually know what's really going on, because it's not just the coding. It's a mental game, and they might pick the wrong game to play. They might pick the wrong strategy because they saw someone on YouTube do it and they fail. And then they either might try again and they might try a different approach and they might win and it might do better. But I think a lot of the time people just get bitter and quit, it makes me sad. So I know that it's not things people like researching because it doesn't seem related to game development at all, but it's relevant to you. It's happening. That stuff, all the mind games, all the mental processes, all the source code is all running in your brain, whether you know it or not. And it's just good to know. What's the quote from The Matrix? Know thyself. You see, because when you do, that whole story, like that whole Matrix, like he's the one. That's not like made up. Like there's a reason why that movie resonates with people. It's because that's true. is that you got to be the one. You got to become you, the one. You know what I mean? There isn't like the one, as in there's only one person, but it's like in your state of mind, you become the one. And the one is, you know, whatever your name is. I become the Jack, or whatever your name is. You can put your name in there. You got to be the you. And the only way to do that is to kind of actually know what your strengths are, what your weaknesses are, what you like. Because if you don't know that, you're going in blind. Anyway, but yeah, bending spoons. That's right. I mean, oh man, I could sit here for another like many hours and dissect that movie. But you know, there's a reason why it's a classic movie. It's because the story is true. There is a truth to it. If it wasn't true, no one would care about The Matrix. No one would revere it as a classic film. No one would, it would be, forget about it. It'd just be Hollywood slop. But there is an underlying, because I mean, the guys that wrote that movie knew about this stuff. Where do you think they got the idea to write that movie? Probably from Carl Jung or somewhere. That's probably where it came from. And it's like, it's not an accident that the themes of that movie resonated with so many people. But yeah, just the first movie though, by the way, not the sequels. I don't know what the hell happened there, but you get what I'm trying to say. But yeah, anyway, so that's kind of all I wanted to say. If you want to start a project, like, yeah, of course, do the tutorial stuff. Go figure and do the technicals. But just in the background, pay attention to yourself and pay attention to like what you enjoy. And this is the way I figured it out, because I'd be sitting here working and I'd go, oh man, I hate this. Like if there was a thing that came up and my brain instantly went, this is torture, I hate this. Then I took note of that and went, I seem to really dislike this. And then sometimes that wouldn't happen. I'd start doing something and I'd get really into it. I'm gonna go, I like this. And you come up with your own little combination of what you like and what you don't like. And I think surviving is a matter of picking the path of least resistance. But that path is going to be completely different depending on your thresholds. And you can figure those out by just studying psychology. That's sort of my conclusion. So I know it sounds boring, I know, but that's if you actually want because I've gotten some emails this week, people asking me, if you actually want advice, that's what I have to say. I'm not going to tell you to just sit down and work hard, because if you do study psychology, you will learn that won't work for everyone. Like that's what I'm trying to get at, is that you will learn if you're the guy that can do it that way. And sometimes you don't have to sit down and work hard and grind. Like, you know, there are some people that can actually do pretty well without having to do it like that. But that's the point, is that there is many paths to the end. There isn't just one way of doing it. You don't have to form a AAA company and hire 50 artists to make a game. Like there's a lot of different ways to do it. And that's kind of the, to bring it, or to circle it all the way back now. That's kind of what I wanted. That was my journey for that devlog, was me figuring out my path. And it's been working out. We've been making steady progress, and I'm not suffering as much emotionally. I'm suffering in other ways, but it's tolerable. But me trying to do the other way is worse. Like it suffers a lot more. So Jerry Seinfeld says, find the suffering you're comfortable with. That's kind of that's the simplified version of that idea. But yeah, anyway, that's going to probably do it for me, guys. Thanks so much for sticking around. I appreciate it. Thanks for sticking around for the real advice, for those that are still here. What's up? I think, oh, sorry, I totally forgot. We were going to do like a Discord emote thing. I totally forgot about it. I'm sorry. I've just been kind of like engaged in the writing the devlog and doing the particles and stuff. But absolutely, over the next week, we'll start trying to kick something off with that. I'm still trying to figure out how to approach it, because again, I don't know how to run contests or anything like that. But I know a lot of you guys want custom Discord stickers and stuff in the Discord. We'll figure out something. But I gotta go eat, and then I'm gonna keep working, and then maybe over the weekend I'll try and figure out something with that. But thanks for joining me for another catch up, for another Project Feline thing. The new devlog is getting done. It's coming along. We're getting some particles in, and I can't wait to show you how this will look next week for some more exciting ones. So tune in next time, same time, whatever time zone it is. Check the schedule link down below, and I will see you then, guys.